على اللاعب دائما الاختيار بين السرعة والأمان، الاثنين معا مع كاسبرسكي الجديد. أوف يا لها من سرعة! جاهز للعب؟ لنختار الشخصية. رائع جدا، لكني أشعر بشيء ناقص. سنحافظ عليه في أمان من أجلك. كاسبرسكي الجديد يحمي صورك وكلمات المرور وأرقام بطاقاتك الائتمانية، فإذا كنت مهتما الهاكرز يهتمون أيضا. محاولة جيدة. كل دقيقة في اللعب مهمة، احميها مع كاسبرسكي الجديد.
نقدم لكم كنتاكي كرانشز في 3 نكهات مختلفة: بيبر مايو، داينامايت، اوريجينال مايو. اختر الكرانشر اللي تحبه، متوفر الآن في كنتاكي.
جديدة يرجع فترة يتحرك ويتقدم فريق F16.
كوارتز يغرب، كوارتز امريك تويستد يغرب، هو انك تلعب لاين اب، رافع التشكيله المثاليه لعبه.
هو شوف لك الشوط على طول زي وقت يتحدث وفي نزول قوي الحين فرصه كبيره للاعب الثلاث حتتصل لكن لا الان باللون كبير
سلام الكابتن لكن كوار موجود، مستحيل هذا.
Welcome back to the Saudi eLeague. I'm Commander X. I'm joined by Chris. This is the SEC Play Analysis Desk. It's the penultimate day of Saudi eLeague, Chris. A lot has happened, a lot still to happen. How are you feeling as we get towards the end of this tournament?
I'm good. It's a little bit earlier in the day, which is nice for me. Only 2 games left. We must have seen maybe over 10 games so far, so only 2 to go. And I think that actually we might have quite an exciting day today.
It's kind of geared up quite nicely. Originally, we thought a lot about this top 4 teams, and there was a quite clear top 2 and a quite clear 3rd/4th place. But based on what we saw yesterday, we see GK trending down, F16 trending up, and we're going to get to see the conclusion of whose trajectory is going to overtake the other, if at all, today.
Yeah, I think at the start of the week, I think I had today pegged down for one of those days where maybe it was going to be either Twisted Minds or GK dominating whoever they ended up facing. But I think there's a lot of factors as to why we really think that F16 has a good chance today. And I think once we get into it a little bit more, I really think that this one, no way it's a 4-0. I'm calling it already.
We are going to get best of 7, which does open it up to more map picks, more variety. And with the 2 teams we're going to get today, we're going to have GK very much on the Sigma side of the meta. F16 have really found their niche and their success in the dive area. So we're going to get a clash in those 2 styles today. And it will be really interesting to see who can come out on top.
Yeah, I think if we look back to yesterday, the Twisted Minds GK series was the one that everybody was really looking forward to seeing. And I think that first 2 maps, it looked like the series that we were promised. It looked back and forth, both maps very competitive. And then the last 3 maps couldn't be anything but. I did some homework, some stats. Across those last 3 maps, Twisted Minds died 24 times across 3 maps. GK Esports died 94 times. So an unbelievable level of dominance shown across the back end of that series yesterday.
Wow, that's about as big as it gets, really, especially considering those first 2 maps did look so promising. I think maybe some key underperformances on the side of GK and Twisted Minds, for the most part, really hitting their gear, especially in terms of raw mechanics and shots they hit. But we can take a look at some of the highlights from actually that first series of the day, where F16 took down Rock Esports.
Yeah, I think also when we looked at the highlights from Kaspersky earlier today, Rock Esports versus F16 was very much a classic Sigma team versus a dive team. But we really looked at this and felt like F16 maybe started to improve their dive. They locked it in fully, right? Like there was no attempt to go away from it. No matter what the map was, this team was fully on dive. And probably that's what we expect to see continuing from them today.
It's quite interesting because F16 and GK were in the same group at the start of this tournament. When they played each other, F16 was still in the mode where they had the Sigma look, they had the dive look, and they changed it based on the map. But when they played GK in groups, they thought they couldn't dive them, and they locked in Sigma for all 3 maps and got 3-0'd pretty convincingly. Since then, we've seen F16 give up on the Sigma side of the matchup, all in on the dive, and they've started to look quite refined on it. Lots of good combinations between someone and QLM, and also lots of big value from Merit playing flex DPS.
Yeah, I think both teams will have that in the back of their mind. Obviously, the GK dominated F16 when they played last time 3-0. But during that series, there was like Goku came in for the first time. Like you said, it was only Sigma. There was, even when they were 2-0 down, there was no attempt to play the dive. I would be absolutely shocked if we saw that today. I'll be writing the tweets myself to Kareev, flaming him if they decide that. I think that this will be a totally different matchup, and I think that will really work towards F16's favour. The mental side of the fact that they've already been 0-3'd by this team won't be as big a factor, considering that we expect totally different comps coming out from F16.
Exactly. I think one thing that's really true is that when you're playing these dive v brawl matchups, and we've talked about it before, it can be quite momentum based. Suddenly, if a few of your initial dives just work, you catch the Baptiste before he gets his shift or his lamp off, you catch the Sim or the May or something and force an early ice block. If you get a couple of these, it can really snowball against the brawl team. And we saw a lot of that. And where we've seen teams have success with dive in this tournament so far, it is when they're able to actually find surprise value in the neutrals as well as in those big ult fights.
Yeah, if we look at the GK roster, I suspect there won't be too many surprises. I think that I don't think that this team has a plan B. I don't think that this team is going to swap comps. I think that they will still run in with relative confidence that they can at least beat F16 and then hope to get the rematch tomorrow against Twisted. I think we're going to see Lucio. I think we're going to see Bap. I think we're going to continue to see Sigma. The only question I have is, will we see any Symmetra, especially like we spoke about for Rocky Sports on some of these bigger maps from Checkmate? And if someone is playing Winston, will Rojo continue his signature Sojourn, or does he also have the ability to play a Bastion to force someone off?
We were critical of Rock when they got posed this same question by F16, that their swaps didn't seem to quite line up with maybe how we thought they might change and adapt when they saw certain heroes. Be interested to see what GK does. Obviously, GK in the past have had success against this dive and probably feel pretty comfortable and confident in themselves. I think in a lot of ways today, the issues for GK are less technical or Overwatch based, but more mental based. Can they bounce back from the disappointing ends in that previous series yesterday?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. GK roster seems pretty stable in terms of the heroes that they're going to pick. F16's roster, on the other hand, very much the opposite. We've seen more flexibility out of this roster than probably any team at the tournament. We've seen one or two subs, especially on that DPS position, but I like what I see on my screen right now. I think that this is a sign that we're going to see Doomfist and a Brig dive from map 1. One thing I'm interested in, I don't know how you feel about this, but I felt that across the series yesterday, whenever Merit played Tracer, I felt that that hero, or just the way that Merit was playing it, was getting slightly less value than the Echo and the Genji especially. I think especially if they're playing it on like control maps or maps where there isn't a payload, where the Tracer has like a really good chance to play the objective. I wasn't super sold, especially on this map 1, which they ended up losing. What do you think? Do you think that the Tracer is a problem? Do you think we'll keep seeing it?
I think if you had to like have me power rank these heroes in terms of their effectiveness into dive, I'd probably say Echo, then Genji, then Tracer. I feel like while it's a strong dive hero, when you're playing against these more sturdy compositions, it's a lot harder to actually get value with that Tracer. And when we saw him yesterday, when you get Blade off, when you get Copy off, these are high rate of winning fights with no ults. Yesterday, Merit didn't stick, I think, a single pulse bomb maybe in the map or so we saw. And if you're not sticking pulse bombs, you're probably not getting kills with it. And if you're not getting kills with your ult, you put yourself in a real hole against these brawl compositions. So I'd really like to see them pull away from the Tracer and put him back on Genji, put him on Echo. He's done well on these heroes. Even though we don't know him for these heroes, he has done really well on them. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think especially when they played the Genji, I think there was a huge element of, well, maybe we need to win this fight. We just have ults for it, and I think that there was probably elements of the copy. Copy is always online, right? It charges so fast. Whereas pulse bomb, we have pulse bomb, but we have to stick it. We have to find a way to avoid the lamp, and we have to if we combo those two things, then maybe it's a powerful ult. But yeah, I think especially on maybe the Koth maps. I hope I don't see as much Tracer, but I also think that they won map 4 with Tracer just about. So unsure if they'll swap.
Yeah, one thing that's quite nice about how a lot of these series starts is we start on Samoa, so you do get a chance. The 3 different rounds of Samoa are all slightly different, so you can try a couple of different looks. Maybe something like the Echo or the Genji is more suitable to Volcano, but then on Downtown, you've got a little bit more space, or Beach, you've got a little bit more space. But Tracer can be quite good at forcing the objective, especially on Beach when the point's underneath. Maybe there's a chance for him to try a few different things and see how it fits. Obviously, we know this from all Tracer players, right? Sometimes you're just hitting all the pulse bombs, sometimes you're not hitting all the pulse bombs. Maybe it was just an off day. If he starts hitting every stick today, suddenly that Tracer pick could look like it can actually find value.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the worst. I think also you probably got a pretty good chance of being able to live in some of these neutrals, so you should at least charge the ult very fast, whether or not it's the most effective. But yeah, I think that's going to be a real question mark. I think that it does seem. One thing that maybe we can talk about is why last time when GK and F16 played, why did we not see any dive? My feeling is there has to be something that's happened internally in terms of they must have scrimmed each other in F16, because F16 played the dive in the group stages and they went against GK and they thought, okay, we need Mirror Hit Scanner, we need to play Sigma against it. What do you think? Why do you think that they were so hesitant to bring it out previously, and maybe why they won't be so hesitant today?
I think you're right. There's probably something internally. Obviously, a lot of the teams we're seeing in this tournament have scrimmed each other at various times. But I also think when you look at all the success they had against Rock yesterday, F16 got so much value out of forcing Fakator's cooldowns early, putting him under pressure, get the lamp out, then kill on the next dive. Go in with a neutral dive, get the lamp out, kill with Blade, kill with the next Nano Doom or whatever the ult might be. But against a team like GK have invested their import slot into Landon. And if you've heard me and Chris talk at any time over the last 2 years, you might have heard some combination of the words, Landon is the best BAP in the world, come out of our mouth. And it's still true to this day. And I think that's a big reason why they were initially so hesitant to dive into GK. I think the reason they'll do it today is, well, it's the only thing that's worked for them so far in this tournament. So their hand is a little bit forced.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Obviously, what we saw yesterday was the dive was so much pressure that they actually subbed out their support player in favor of a DPS. It was so difficult for them to deal with. I don't see a world in which Landon's getting subbed out today. My feeling is that he's gonna play. There is a question of how much of the real question that we need to answer, I suppose, was how much was F16's like the kills they were getting in the neutral and their success with these dives, how much was it because they were playing well versus Rocky Sports playing bad? And will, now that we probably play against more of a sturdy lineup, is Landon going to be able to survive? Is he going to get headshot at the start of the fight like he did a lot against Twisted yesterday? And what QLM was also doing a lot yesterday too. So if he can survive that initial neutral, I think that GK will probably go into this with a lot of confidence.
I think so too. I think there is a real argument, as much as GK, I think, had a real confidence shake, not just because they lost to Twisted Minds, maybe they still expected not to be the favourites, but the nature in which they lost in those last 3 maps, they were steamrolled. But because they get to come and play a different matchup today, the Twisted Minds problem just becomes a problem for the grand finals if they get there. They can focus completely on the dive matchup now, put it out of their head. And I think especially when we look at some of those underperformers yesterday, maybe someone like TVNT particularly comes into mind as someone who struggled against KSA. Really hoping to see a return to form for TVNT here today.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for sure the difficulties he was having with the May Rock combo probably won't happen today because there won't be a May or a Sigma. And it works both ways, right? On one hand, it's like, oh, I don't have to worry with that mirror until tomorrow. It's a different matchup. I can kind of refresh. There was obviously what we spoke about last night too, in terms of, oh, all of a sudden I thought I might be able to win this tournament. Maybe now I finish third if we don't clutch up. And if there was an element of panic or some sort of problem that they had, like with their official, like yesterday, that can really negatively snowball a play, especially when there's been no break. It's been one game finished, they're on this one again. So I think that there was probably an element of momentum or an element of confidence which F16 will be able to ride into this game, which maybe we didn't expect them to be able to ride this time yesterday.
If we think about both teams' journeys here as well, both teams had the day break or the few days break between last week and this week. GK would have been putting all their eggs into the Sigma basket. Meanwhile, F16 have been playing exclusively dive against Sigma. So while GK were comfortable against F16's dive, when F16 was still trying to keep both options open, all of a sudden, F16, what was most impressive, as much as I think Landon will do much better than Fakator did yesterday, F16 looked way more refined in terms of how they were taking their dives, how they were using their ults. They were never just pulling the trigger immediately. It was always, can we soften them up? Can we get a cooldown out? And then can we commit with our ult and find the value? So I think F16 probably feel a lot more confident going into this match today than if they had to play GK last week.
Yeah, I think for F16, I felt like when we watched them play dive in the group stages, it was, can someone find a timing to be able to go in and kill everyone? What I felt a little bit watching yesterday was, is QLM able to get a lot of headshots? Like, are we able? They felt like they were able to play slower around the neutral, around QLM, and then when someone decided to go in, they were able to time that shot, like we've mentioned a few times. So I think it's impossible to argue that F16 haven't gotten better at the dive across the last 5 days. The question will be, they weren't confident enough to be able to beat GK with dive this time last week. Has the improvements been enough? Have GK even considered playing against dive? I suspect that everything that GK have done across the last 5 days has just been Sigma versus Sigma. Let's make sure that we got these ult trades, these cooldown trades. All of a sudden, maybe they got a team to warm them up like efficiently today on the dive, but it's possible that GK hasn't even considered, like, even hasn't even thought about dive for the past week or so.
It's really true. And one thing that we've both experienced as coaches in our time is sometimes you can feel like you've solved playing into a certain comp, or you've solved a certain situation. And you leave it there and just think, if we ever run into it again, we've got it solved. But what happens is the team you just beat, where you thought you solved it, have gone away and crafted and come up with a load of new ideas, insane this week F16 has had. And then all of a sudden, this comp you think you've not solved at all. And if it goes badly, particularly in this first map, especially after maybe some nervy performance yesterday, maybe a lot of pressure really gets on this GK roster really quickly, and everything can really start to get away from them.
Yeah, it's obviously a first of four, but I think map one is so pivotal in this series. Like you said, if F16 can come out and win map one, GK, their alarm bells are going to be ringing. There's going to be a lot of panic in that team. I think we spoke about, we saw some individual like bad performances, not just like, oh, they weren't able to like compete with their number, but actual bad performances. At TVNT, like a lot of mistakes, and neutrals missed a lot of ults. I think you can make a real argument that the pressure was a factor there. If they go down early today, this could even, as unthinkable as it is, this could even go like 4-0 F16 if the mental aspect of it slides out of control so fast.
It's one of those things where, especially on Sigma or any tank hero, you actually have a huge set of responsibilities in almost every matchup. So even though he doesn't have to worry about getting walled, getting rocked, but all of a sudden, if he isn't blocking Chaos's nade, and Chaos has been hitting a lot of nades, if he's not blocking those nades for his team, he's not marking the Sojourn as best he can, suddenly QNM and Chaos are taking over, and TVNT is maybe not getting wall rocked, but there's other holes in his gameplay that are putting his team in difficult positions.
Yeah, I think that generally speaking, the Sigma role is probably a little bit simpler in terms of, I just need to kind of hold a line, wait for the enemy team to dive past me. I have to hit the rocks, right? If I'm playing Sigma, if I hit the rocks, then I get like that's a massive a way to kill Doomfists, especially. Maybe a little bit harder against Winston, but then also, like we spoke about, Rojo has to swap Bastion against the Winston. So yeah, I think that this one is set up quite nicely. It's one of those where I could see it being a map 7. I could also see it being a stomp for either team. So I really feel like actually there is a lot of options open in this game, which I didn't at least foresee being open this time yesterday.
I think especially when we talk about the nature of a 7-map series is there's more maps, there's more chances to pick. And also when two teams are playing very polar opposed compositions, the map picks become super important. And there's also a little bit of luck in terms of what map picks you get. Like if you're the dive team, you would love to pick map 2. So even if you lose map 1, you can take it to Parisio, feel really good about that. Likewise, maybe picking Flashpoint is a bit rubbish if you're the dive team. The maps are kind of hard to dive no matter which one you pick. So I think there's a real big thing once we get to the map picking stage of the series that can really turn it in one team's favor or the other.
Yeah, I think that one other thing to consider is if we look at this just like game modes in general, I think the dive team probably wants as many payload maps as possible. I think if you give me the opportunity to pick hybrid maps and escort maps, in the best of 7, we're going to be able to see some more of that. Obviously, if you win your payloads in a best of 5, you still only win 2 out of 5, so you can still lose the series. That I'm not entirely sure the exact map order in terms of what happens after map 5.
So we do the same map order as we do every time. So we would go into escort for map 5, and then we do control, then escort again. So escort is potentially the map 7 deciding one. And even when we look at some of those Koth points, actually Koth, you can swing it in a more dive-favored map as well. So I think there's really a lot of options for F16. And what we might get is you sometimes get it where, say, the dive team wins all the dive maps, then the brawl team gets to take it to a more Sigma favored map. They'll win all the Sigma maps, and it eventually becomes who can break the other team's map pick first.
Yeah, and I think that Circuit Royale and Route 66 both being in the pool actually makes it a really interesting situation because whoever gets that map pick can almost force a map where their comp is massively favored. I think there's a real argument that Route 66 is, do you reckon it's the best dive map in the game? Maybe Parisio is close. Circuit Royale is by far the hardest dive map in the game, right? So if we're in a situation where like either team gets to pick that, especially if it's on map 7, that's a massive factor. What do we think for predictions? I feel like, what am I going to go for? I'm going to go for a nice 4-2 esports. What do you reckon?
I was going to go the same. I think if they win map 1, F16 could really turn us into a 4-3 dogfight. Map picks finally decide it one way or the other. But if, as expected, GK still remain the dominant team, the stronger team, I feel like they will just go into cruise control. Maybe they'll still lose a Parisio. Maybe they'll still lose an Esperanza, something like that. So they'll drop maps. I would be very surprised if we see a 4-0 unless one team just completely collapses. But I think GK are still the stronger team. I expect them to maybe drop a couple of the dive maps. So maybe I'm going to go in a really boring fashion, 4-2, just like you. Oh. But who would know? We would just agree. But let's get on with it. Let's head down to the stage now and let's go get our teams out here for this lower bracket final.
يعطيكم العافية أخواني المحللين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا وحياكم الله وبياكم جميعا أعزائنا الحضور ومشاهدينا الكرام في كل مكان، وأسعد الله أوقاتكم بكل خير. ورجعنا لكم باليوم الثامن من الدوري السعودي للرياضات الإلكترونية في لعبة Overwatch 2. هذا هو اليوم الثامن فعلا، ولكن هو اليوم الثاني من الأسبوع الثاني واليوم اللي ما قبل الأخير. معكم أخوكم وجيه المقدم في بطولة Overwatch والرهيب نورمال. حياك الله.
Allah يحييك وجيه. Hello everybody, ladies and gentlemen, eSport enthusiasts. Welcome to Saudi eLeague Day 8 for Overwatch 2, the playoffs. Right here, taking place in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, the land of heroes. I am Yusuf, aka Normal, your host for today, alongside the spectacular Wajih. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special story. We have a different story right now. We got the loser finals waiting for us. We got two teams. One of them is gonna win and face the undefeated champions, Twisted Minds, on the grand finals. So I wonder Wajih, what's gonna happen and who's gonna win this series?
بالتأكيد بنشوف مين اللي يقدر يفوز في هذه الجولة، ونفس ما ذكر أخوي نورمان أنا بتكون معانا مباراة الفاينل لوزر براكت. بنشوف مين اللي بيفوز ويروح للجراند فاينل اللي هو النهائي الكبير ضد فريق تويستد مايند، ومين اللي بيخسر ويتم إقصائه من البطولة بالمركز الثالث. فأعزائنا الحضور ومشاهدينا الكرام، كلنا متحمسين وكلنا متشوقين أن نشوف هذه المباراة الحماسية تجمع فريقين كبار في اللوزر فاينل، فخلونا نحييهم ونرحب فيهم معانا بالستيج. أعزائنا الحضور، سمعونا أقوى تحية لفريق جي كي اي سبورت.
Right now, GK Esports on the stage right now and ready to dive into battle. But we forgot one thing. They still have one opponent waiting for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise and let's hear it for F16 Esports! Right now, both teams are ready to dive into battle. And as we mentioned, this is the last match for them. One of them are gonna go to the grand finals and face Twisted Minds. He's been waiting for an enemy for a long time right now, وجيه.
نفس ما ذكرت اخوي نورمان، مباراة أخيرة لفريق واحد بين فريق اف 16 وجي كي اي سبورت، مباراة مصيرية ومباراة حاسمة تفصل فريق اف 16 ضد جي كي. بنشوف من اللي بيفوز فيها ويروح للجراند فاينل ضد فريق تويستد مايند. فنتمنى لهم كامل التوفيق. قبل نروح عند اخواني المعلقين فليتفضل جميع الحضور بالوقوف استعدادا للنشيد الوطني.
And as Wajih mentioned, please all rise for the national anthem of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Welcome to the Saudi eLeague. We have our lower bracket final almost ready to go between GK Esports and F16. And, well, Dustin, we got a lot to talk about because we learned a lot about GK yesterday, maybe not in the best of ways, but we're wishing them the best of luck and a big turnaround today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the ultimate game for GK and F16, right? I mean, on one front, you have GK, who is trying to get that bounce-back game after losing in that upper bracket, and you have F16 making that lower bracket run from earlier after losing to GK in the uppers.
Yeah, I think GK had some issues, right? They had TVNT lose that Sigma duel against KSA, and Rojo, who had a tough time against Quartz. But what I love about this tournament is that there are so many breaks between matches, right? We only have one today, and then the grand final tomorrow. So GK had a lot to think about, a lot to talk about. And then how do you approach this match against F16, who have been one of the most unique teams in this bracket when it comes to playing a Doomfist dive, although the last time they faced in that upper bracket, F16 didn't play it as much.
Yeah, that dive composition is what you're talking about. It's just F16 has really transitioned in terms of their identity throughout the whole tournament. And it's really unique to see. I don't think there's many times we've seen this in previous Overwatch games, unless there's an incredibly large meta shift because of a patch change or something. So the fact that these guys are kind of honing in on their dive, making sure that they're like that unique team that can really upset anybody is super, super cool to see.
And F16 have a lot of threats on that team. Most interestingly, that Merit. If you watch the Overwatch League, you know this name, especially in the Sojourn meta, as one of the best out there. But interestingly, F16 brought him onto the roster to not play Sojourn, but to actually flex to other things, while Merit has been that hit scan guy for all of his previous teams. Now, I gotta say that QLM has been fitting into those shoes really well. How he faces against Rojo, I think, is going to be the most interesting matchup, because I really don't know how that's going to go either way, especially when GK ended on a low note yesterday.
Yeah, that is a great question, is who's going to pop off at the moment today, right? I mean, yeah, you're right. QLM has been doing well, fitting in well, but also Rojo has been consistent except yesterday. So overall, you're right. It does come down to today, and that is the matchup we're all going to be looking at: is can Rojo perform, get that bounce back game versus QLM, who has been on the rise himself, right? And like you said, Merit has been doing that flex role, right? Kind of allowing QLM to take over in terms of the hits game, which is definitely one of the most odd things we've seen throughout the tournament. But he's been doing well. I think Merit on the flex role has been consistent to help someone get across in those dives, especially if we see him on that Genji role. That's also another thing, is Merit has been playing a lot of the Tracer, and that is up for debate still, kind of what is better in terms of how much, viability there is to that composition with the Tracer or with the Genji. So there's so many different aspects of just the dive composition that we're going to have to see today, alongside that matchup of Merit or QLM and Rojo.
Yeah, Merit has gone through his own evolution in this tournament, whether it was you know, trying to match on the Mei or the Sim, whatever it was, but then eventually ended up on the Genji, as you said, but then most recently sticking to the Tracer. While I'm a bigger fan of that Tracer, I think it's a lot more flexible, it's mobile, you don't have to worry about getting that dash reset, you don't have to worry about, oh, if I dash, do I have my jump, or am I having the mobility to dodge an accretion, which is a death sentence for Genji. Well, as Tracer, if you know, have the reaction, you have the ping, you can blink out of that accretion, but the downside of Tracer is that the ultimate isn't as impactful as a Genji, especially when linking up with Chaos's Ana for the Nano Blade. That's been a more guaranteed win condition for F16, and we'll see if Merit will stick to maybe running more of that Tracer as, okay, you don't have as much of an impactful ultimate, but maybe you're stronger in the neutral because of that.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to witness, you know, what he decides to do in terms of that area. And by the way, this is going to be a 1st to 4, guys. So whichever team wins 4 maps first will be moving on to the grand finals in these loser finals. So also nice to have a lower finals matchup that goes the distance, right? Every team wants as many maps as they possibly can get, because obviously the better team, you know, is going to win out of that. But for F16's side here, Lemon, I mean, they're still kind of deciding, I'm sure they've already decided what to run, but really you're going to be focusing on, if you're a viewer right now, look at what Merit's going to choose after he goes for that Sim TP out of spawn, because we know they're going to run the Doomfist dive, and we know GK is going to stick with this Sigma Lucio speed.
Yeah, I think he goes Tracer after this. Someone staying on the Doomfist is interesting. F16 actually dropped Samoa in one of their matches because some of these rounds are a bit larger, and it makes it difficult, or at least less consistent, for the Doomfist to get consistent stuns. Because Doomfist isn't much of a carry in terms of DPS, but more about it being a setup guy. He's looking for stuns, and he's looking for the immediate follow-up, as Merit will lock in that Tracer and hope that he can link up with his Doomfist. And at range, QLM hoping to work off that space that's created by his Doomfist, hope to get these executions. GK with this Mei. Want a Mei wall, maybe someone from escaping, as someone was hoping to knock some people into the water. And he's right behind him is Haku with the pack. So not too much threat level there by F16 yet.
A lot of space given, though, from GK, right? They're not really making a maneuver at the moment. Just trying to shut out the flank angles, avoid the antis, but TVNT takes a big one.
Yeah, GK are getting low, but still no kills yet, as someone from behind, and now has Merit as a distraction, so Rojo is being surrounded. He's able to deal with those threats quite well, but somehow Merit is on the hunt, finds checkmate, and now this is spilled over. F16 has set up camp in that back line, and GK fall, and that first point goes to F16.
Yeah, because of both Sojourns really not getting a ton of value in terms of those one-shot railguns, it results in this fight just being very, very long, and both teams just kind of having to, you know, edge out in terms of those overall win conditions. Eventually, F16 in the neutral, because they're running dive, are going to take full advantage of it. Eventually, you know, GK's members were whittled down, so we have a bit of a pause, maybe a tech delay going on here. But for F16's side, I mean, they look good at the moment, making sure GK doesn't feel comfortable, and obviously they're not right now. I mean, GK maybe a bit in their own heads after yesterday. Coming into today, they look a bit passive, Lemon.
Yeah, GK, I think, might have to play reactive just based on their composition. Like, they wait for F16 to get on the flank and then hope to find a Mei wall. Maybe you stop someone from escaping. That seems to be the win con for checkmate. And then you can't, you know, the poke from Mei is still very, very strong with those icicles. Checkmate mechanically has been really impressive. Rojo and QLM probably have the lowest, actually the lowest ult charge in the game, because they've had probably a hard time charging off these tanks. TVNT is taking less and less risks, and obviously in a round one, map one scenario, you're taking your time as much as possible, and to see how scary F16 are.
Yeah, F16 taking full advantage. Merit still has that pulse bomb ready to go, by the way, in this fight, and everybody also has a lot of ultimates on F16's side, but what a sticky forces the immortality field out of GK.
That's good from Landon, but the damage is still done to TVNT, who's quite low, and Landon really has so much to juggle. Has to heal his tank, and turn to deal with this Tracer flank. Merit removed from that flank, and now Haku 2 after a Blizzard was thrown from checkmate with a double kill, both supports gone, and F16 will drop this fight and give up, we'll give it up at 46%.
Unfortunately, F16 decided far too late to use their ultimates there. Obviously, you know, as soon as GK was walking in, you would have liked to see F16 commit those ultimates early on, but because they decided to commit them so late, GK just were able to walk in, find that opening pick on the Merit, and get everything rolling.
Like that TVNT is really present at the front, using his shield, needs to own this choke point, while also marking where F16 are going to go on the flank. There are 2 lanes on the side of this main road. Here's the grab flux, catches QLM. And TVNT struggled to get value yesterday, and if he could just focus these Sojourns down, this could be big. But with QLM lifted into the air, he got an angle on checkmate, which is an opening for F16, but someone couldn't find his supports in time, and of course no nano available. F16 now don't have that setup, and Merit can't do it all by himself, so GK will win this fight and take the lead.
Yeah, I mean, that was just the comeback there from GK. Obviously now 50% of the board, they take the edge. For F16 there, I mean, it's hard because they want to keep someone alive, and oh no, another stagger pick on a QLM is awful as F16 back up, but someone keeps dying incredibly quickly. GK's target focus today look on point compared to yesterday.
They're starting, yeah, GK have started to download what this flank style is out of Merit and someone, but this time someone will have the Meteor Strike, so he'll be a bit luckier this time. GK, Amp Matrix, they can own this lane, and I like that checkmate swap to the Tracer so he can have a better time marking Merit and keeping him in his place. And just even the information without the kill could be enough. Checkmate, though, starts to harass Chaos as F16 follow back for peels. TVNT is getting so greedy for that kill and gets surrounded. That Sigma is gone and landed with the amp. Tries to do his best, but Merit is all over him. As that F16 just bulldoze their way to the point. We'll be flipping it shortly, but it's 99 for GK, so they only need 1 fight to take the round.
Yeah, that was very, very interesting from TVNT pushing past the choke. I know he expected Lamp to come back out of Landon, or the Immortality Field rather, out of Landon. But unfortunately, you know, Landon juices those, right? He's very, very good at just making sure to get maximum value out of the Immortality Field. In that instance, unfortunately, it was far too late.
This is going to be a close one. F16 have nano. Usually that's gone to someone. Checkmate throws the pulse and misses the supports, but someone doesn't miss these onto Landon. You get rid of that BAP. Not a lot of heals for GK. They can depend on Oi getting sound barrier quickly. This could salvage this fight in a 4v5. As F16 know they don't want to waste any time, and they've started to put pressure on the TVNT. They deny the grab flux, and he should have maybe gone for it. It's 90% plus for F16. This is last fight. And F16 are going for staggers. The lamp is out from Landon. Oi can't use sound barrier. And GK have the touch, but their Lucio isn't even alive. So all these ults are wasted out of GK, who will not be able to use it.
They're saving him for next map, Levin. I mean, oh jeez, that's bad. You know, it all kind of started after the stagger pick onto them. You know, I forgot who got picked early for GK, but somebody did from someone, which is kind of funny to say that. But yeah, someone found the opening kill at like 82%, and at that point, it was just over, right? That's where you see a lot of teams maybe use some of those ultimates down 4 versus 5. And out of all teams that you would expect to do that, it'd be GK, right, Lemon? That was a big thing from yesterday, is GK would always be able to come back in these 4 versus 5s versus Twisted Minds, but they were a bit too hesitant to commit anything there. Maybe thought they had a bit more time than they actually had. Unfortunately for them, they didn't. Didn't get to use 3 ultimates, I believe it was. Gravitic Flux, Beat Drop, and use either Overclock or Blizzard. Didn't even get to use any of those ultimates. That's awful to see if you're a GK fan, considering yesterday they were so confident in 4 versus 5s.
Yeah, GK are slow to react in these panic situations. They gotta use ults, TVNT. Even if you get the ult canceled at 100 HP, it's better than not using it at all, right? But now it's a Sigma mirror, but different DPS. The Mei Sojourn versus Sim Bastion. F16 have a lot of firepower and the teleport potential. I don't expect QLM to maybe go with Merit, but Merit can produce a distraction by going behind GK. And for now, someone will get to move forward. There's the fake TP play. Someone steps up. He's got the May wall behind him, but plenty of space for F16 to just get around it. And F16 managed to get the cap, but Merit didn't have the teleport out. It might have been destroyed either way. That is a big opening for GK. Now they move to the right, and that's a big icicle from Checkmate hitting. Chaos forcing the lamp out. GK activate the speed. A great call from Oi. And with F16 being disorganized, that was a great moment for GK to capitalize.
I mean, not to be a Debbie Downer here for F16, but they're not good at this composition, right? It's just straight up, they're awful at playing Sigma Rush compositions here. Unless GK absolutely throw this, it seems like F16 are kind of gonna lose this map. Look, getting even more staggered here, Lemon. This is just awful. Unfortunately, F16 are just so disorganized, specifically with this comp. Oh my god, that Akrish almost sent the Bastion off the map. But look, they're even these spawn camp. That's how, you know, uncoordinated they are with this Sigma composition. Yes, they built up some ultimates at the very least, but Lemon, we're already at 50%, and GK are playing aggressive.
GK almost got punished. They got very, very low on that spawn hold, so F16 now walk into the grab flux. Good dodge on the accretion. This Bastion's doing a lot of damage. F16 don't have a sound barrier. Haku was like 3% away. That could have turned everything for them if they could have had the barrier for the flux. And now F16 are lit up like a Christmas tree with these ultimates, and you gotta hope that this is gonna turn this around.
Yeah, F16 do have those 5 ultimates, like you said, but GK, oh my god, a pick from Chaos of all things onto GK. Great opening for them.
Finally some punish, and that's off the Maywall from Checkmate as F16 stepped too far forward. Now this Bastion of QLM plus the Amp Matrix was enough to scare the heck out of GK, and F16 had to the point to flip shortly. And they got a lot of work ahead of them at 9% versus the 91 of GK.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to see GK take a few fights without ultimates here, but they do have 3. As long as they can get some good engages, maybe they can commit some. But F16 sitting with 4 at the moment, obviously, have the edge in this one.
F16 got to cycle these ultimates well. You can always open with artillery strike or grab flux. It is the latter. Sound Beer from Oi counters that flux, and now you got the QLM artillery strike to try and chunk down some of this overhealth, but really not much lethality from F16. They will use the photon barrier. I love the placement of this from Merit. They're able to freely move towards the point, get closer to GK. Someone is getting all the speed and the support he needs to push on and get a few extra picks. F16 inch closer to, well, closing the gap.
I mean, good old vintage there out of F16, but this is the fight that GK need Rojo to pop off. Got the overclock and a blizzard coming up. You want to see him pop off, it's going to be right now.
A sound bear from Haku too. This could be a tempo engage, but not having Checkmate is painful. The blizzard was a big win condition for GK, and it'll be all up to Rojo to salvage this fight with the overclock if he has the space to do so. Fake teleport play there by Merit. GK check it, they destroy it, they head back to the point. F16 now get themselves organized and have an Amp Matrix, so they're setting up in this high ground lane to hose down GK as TVNT steps up to contest very soon because it's 91 to 90 plus with F16 with control, and that is a sound barrier to help QLM, who got very, very low and is still trying to disengage, but the blizzard from Checkmate catches them. And GK get the eliminations, but Checkmate was the only one, so he's traded 1-to-1, and Merit comes alive. He's tilting the scales in F16 favor, hoping to take map number 1, and his DPS grows just like his team does, as F16 will take Samoa.
Oh my god, that was insane. What a round win in a map win for F16. Despite the odds, playing the Sigma Rush composition, getting that 99-0. In my opinion, that was off of pretty much one fight with no ultimates. Merit, I think it was, getting the opening pick on the Checkmate. I mean, that was absolutely terrible. You know, maybe we saw something on the walkouts here, Lemon, where it looked like GK was not as happy as a team walking out, whereas F16 all smiles coming out. And you can see why. They look good today compared to GK. The win map 1 Samoa, especially in a composition they're not as strong at, that's a good sign if you're an F16 fan.
He gets a lot of pressure to walk into top 3 or in the lower bracket final. It's your last chance. There's a ton of money on the line. And I'm sure, like, the matches earlier too, whether, I don't know what the sleep schedule's like over here, but I gotta say, Merit really impressed me today. The pulse bombs have just been so annoying towards Landon. Merit also, the Symmetra was really impressive. We don't get to see him too often on this hero. Okay, we don't look at that play. But, to be fair, his teleporter got destroyed. But his photon barrier, I think, single-handedly won them the fight. The space creation, the way that they were able to move down the map because Merit allowed it and was probably able to make these calls is big for F16.
It is, and it is funny that he's also playing against his former teammate, and I mean, so is someone playing against his former teammate as well. In checkmate there, and finding the opening picks on him. I'm sure there's some funny bants going on there between both of those guys. Because you're right, Merit was absolutely an insane player on that map. It was beautiful what he did on both the Symmetra and the Tracer. Moving forward, if you're F16's coaching staff, you probably want to continue with those strengths that they've had. They're playing really well at the moment. And if you can keep up this momentum moving forward, I don't think a team like GK can respond. We have yet to see, obviously. You have a lot of time to work with this in this first of 4 or a best out of 7. There's a lot of room that GK can look at when they go back at the VOD. Maybe they'll pick a map that's better for them as well moving forward, Lemon. I mean, this next map pick is really going to be huge.
And you can see that Checkmate is still trying to be that guy that fills the gaps within GK. Big Blizzard plays, he's stepping up, but I think it's a lot more difficult to play Sojourn on Samoa, which is how small the map is. There's a lot of annoying walls and sightlines that you got to get around. You got to expose yourself to the fight.
There's a lot of cover.
There's a lot of cover, and I think when Checkmate throws Blizzard, it takes an extra few seconds for Rojo to get in position to contribute to that, and then Checkmate thinks he's getting a lot more support a lot more quickly compared to maybe previous teams that he's been on, so he's jumping in. He has a lot of trust in his team, and it's great to see when you don't have a lot of time with your team, but Checkmate has been that playmaker for GK, and I think they need to lean on him more.
I want to agree with you because, Checkmate is that guy and he's been playing well, but, there comes a point as well when you're trying to do too much, I would say. Like, I think he's kind of edging that line. You're right. Like, he's at that point where it's like, okay, is he trying to do too much or is he hard carrying? And that's that weird fine line that he's trying to find because obviously he got first picked. I think it was about 60-70% on the board by Merit. And then in that last fight as well, when it was 99 on the board, overtime ticking down, he had a big Blizzard and it was on to, I believe it was QLM, it was QLM, and he didn't get the right click icicle on the head. He was like left clicking or something. The heals were there, sure, but if he just got one icicle right click onto QLM on the Bastion there, that fight would have been over. And I believe that GK would have won that fight. So, I don't know if it's in these clutch situations at the moment. Checkmate's maybe getting in his own head because a lot of this game at the moment is dictated on what happens to Checkmate. And also, can Rojo step up maybe on these more open maps? Like you said, Samoa, it's really hard to play that Sojourn. So maybe they go to a map where Rojo can have an easier time.
Well, guess what? GK Esports are going to have that choice of map coming up next. It is first of 4. F16 are up in the series first. We're going to throw it to a break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, everyone, to the Overwatch Saudi eLeague. We're still in our lower bracket final, and things are heating up. F16 took our first map with a mix of Sigma, mix of Doomfist, and GK. Mixed up internally, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, they seem a little bit out of sorts. But for this team, for GK's side, they look to be like maybe on the second round of Samoa, there's some takeaways there, right? They had some solid engages. They held to 96% on the board before, obviously, that reverse sweep on Volcano happens. So GK have some bounce back potential, especially as the map pit comes in. There's a lot of decisions that obviously they have to make. We have a series on our hand, Lemon. I mean, this has been a really, really fun first map. Samoa was close, even though it was 2-0. Obviously, anything can happen on a control map, especially when, you know, a team like F16 starts to come online with these picks from Merit.
And GK have the choice of map coming up next. I think they lean towards a Sigma map. They try to avoid anything too dive heavy like F16, like Paris. So yesterday when they got to choose, GK choose Midtown. Makes a lot of sense. This is something that F16 had catered special comps for at the start of the tournament, including some Winston on defense. Doomfist on defense and Winston on attack, but then they have since moved to Doomfist primarily. And speaking of who you're primarily using, Oi is out, Speedy is in. Change of Lucio's.
Yeah, I mean, especially since yesterday we saw Oi play 100% of the time. That is a bit odd to see, if I'm going to be honest. I just don't understand this, Lemon. Like, why are you subbing in Lucio players? It literally doesn't matter. Like, I'm just gonna straight up say it. Like, your Lucio player, unless he's like bad, like, did they just not have faith in Oi or something? It just seems odd to me.
I mean, he did like not hit a barrier on the first round, like
when
it was last fight. That was like the only thing I would nitpick. But from what we heard from the analysts, it seems to be like a play style thing. We sometimes see those types of substitutions where there are some players that only play control maps, or really that are strong on certain maps. So maybe Speedy has a lot more time on Midtown compared to Oi. So yeah, that's what I would guess.
Yeah, that might be true. And you know, somebody needs to talk. Like talking what I want to talk about was for this team GK. I would like to see a bit more communication out of them for, you know, going aggressive. It seems like as a team they play a bit too slow, and I don't know if that's because of, you know, one of their star players being Landon, and he's a backline player, so obviously he's going to want to play consistently slow. We've seen a team previously in the Overwatch League, NYXL, do this in Season 2, where they had Jonak, one of the best Zenyatta's in the game, but because they had him, they were a super, super slow team when especially you want to play fast with your lineups, like in these compositions with Sigma.
Speaking of playing fast, F16 are bringing back that Winston on attack, now synergizing with Merit's Genji. So you know you're going to do enough damage where Merit is hoping to get a dash reset. Then he's got the Nanoblade potential when ults come up. But F16 for now have made their way through the left side laundry room where Merit can depend on packs, where Haku and QLM are escorting each other through the back alley, so Merit will have to be independent. But Merit on this Genji also has vertical mobility, can get to that second level a lot easier, where Checkmate is trying to mark him as much as possible while leaving TVNT isolated on the front line. Someone is going to have issues getting through this choke against the Sigma, so needs some room to jump. And now this back alley is getting pushed there by GK to get rid of Haku and QLM, who hits the headshot onto Speedy. F16 though lost someone through the brawl on the front line, so it's not going to be a clean fight for F16 now that, well, they're not able to put a bigger dent into this defense.
Well, this is what you like to see, by the way, as the stagger comes out on the Haku out of GK Esports. You know, they need to play more aggressive. They need to do these kind of proactive plays. And you saw how long it took him to set that up. That was because of Checkmate. He was on that flank, calling for his team to come over. It seems like a lot of the communication is running through this Mei player, setting things up for GK. You need TVNT to make those calls as well.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. F16 now have Nano dive for someone. Maybe you hold it for the blade. Depends. You don't. At least Speedy doesn't have barrier, and you should be pretty confident about him not having that. If you're F16 ult tracking, so Nanoblade, Merit dashes past the flux, and TVNT still has the land. He cuts through two, one climbed away, and F16 have Merit on the point, capping, and GK isn't winning the frontline battle while Merit dashed past them. So GK took L's all around, and F16 will at least take two ticks out of this.
I mean, that was super close. TBNT almost caught Merit in that gravitic flux. He got Chaos, but Chaos committed the nano boost already before Merit dived in. Really, really kind of lucky, honestly, there out of F16, but regardless, it worked out for them. I think a lot of that fight happened because of some poke that happened early on for F16. They were able to build up the nano off of first fight.
Someone trying to move Rojo out of position. This could be a big fight for Rojo off the overclock. He'll have all the space in the world on the bridge, but he needs some targets, and F16 are trying not to expose themselves. QLM taking a body shot. That's a little sketch. And F16 have someone who could play really deep, but look, the trigger's pulled from Checkmate, knowing F16 are in a corner. A huge blizzard locks up Chaos and someone, but GK don't confirm the kills. Their focus fire is all over the place. Haku rallies the team, gives them extra health. GK tries to match with the sound barrier, but Checkmate is not so lucky. He went in so deep for that blizzard, and someone just claps back even harder with the primal rage, and F16 will move forward.
Why is Winston getting buffed? Did you just see that? Friggin' someone. Look, Teenage swaps over to Bastion because he wants to counter this Winston so bad. Just delete the bubble, maybe. Do something, because in that fight, he had overclock, sound barrier, everything that you would think that a Sojourn would need. But then someone's like, nope, I'm just monkey, sorry, and just shut everything down.
I'm Winton. I only know how to jump. F16 moving forward now. The cart almost to be. Merit gets hit by a sticky nade of the Bastion, and Teenage with a big swap onto the Bastion. This is a perfect call out of Rojo. This Bastion is going to shred someone and this dive apart.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You're right. Teenage on the Bastion is a bit more consistent than running the Sojourn. Sojourn requires very, very high skills, or high ceilings. Unfortunately, Teenage hasn't been able to reach it, so you just want to take the bare minimum, have him on Bastion, force that swap from someone to do.
F16 got Nano Blade again. GK don't have a sound barrier. They've been out of sync, just trying to match the rally with the barrier, but this flux is massive. You love to see how proactive GK are. And the Nano Blade is just stifled by the Immortality Field from Landon. Not getting any trades there, not getting any support. You love to see GK just deal with that panic a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, TVNT Gravitic Flux was perfectly timed there. Compared to the last time they tried a Nano Blade, Chaos was able to get it off. In this situation, Chaos still has his Nano. TVNT again, though, opening pick on the Merit as he tried to set up his flank too. So maybe GK's coming online here as Checkmate has the pulse, saving it for next. Lemon, we're already at 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the clock, and F16 haven't built up an ult bank.
I like that Checkmate is on the Tracer. You can just be a more independent queen, not having to worry about, oh, do I have Ice Block, do I have Wall? Well, you just control your blinks well, or use your blinks effectively. And Checkmate can play by himself as much as possible. The artillery strike has got Chaos dancing, and Checkmate slams him with a pulse, deals with Merit, and GK have kept F16 at bay for so long.
That is brutal if you're Chaos. I don't even think he did anything wrong there. He was just the focus of all of GK's ultimates. Artillery strike first had to dip and dodge away from that, and then immediate pulse round from Checkmate. 35 seconds left. Now, F16 have the ultimate advantage going into this fight, but the cart is regressing at the moment. That's a worry for them.
GK just controlling how F16 played this game. They force them onto the Doom, and someone gets the Nano. And F16 are trying to push the car. They have multiple objectives, and someone with the double kill is massive, and doesn't manage to save Chaos, but nonetheless, F16 are in a healthy position. They've team-wiped GK, and they have the Haku rally in case this fight starts earlier. Chaos is going to swap to something that can get to the fight sooner, like a Kiriko or a Moira. Either way, this is last fight for point B, and GK are around the corner.
I mean, I like the Kiriko more than the Moira here, but regardless, 3 meters left, 2 meters left. Rally in this fight as well. Stun early, but TVNT's got the Flux.
Now the Flux to deal with Haku, but it's not enough damage against this rally, and GK already used the barrier early just to establish themselves. TVNT is in so much trouble, and Checkmate not hitting the pulse is painful. F16 simply overwhelmed GK and will be capping B in overtime.
Oh my gosh, I mean, in overtime, to be able to do that is huge for F16. Chaos swaps back to the Ana. Lemon, I think this is the first time in a few days that we've seen third point Midtown. It feels like everybody's been stopped in the streets phase, so finally F16 breaking the streak and moving on to third with the ult advantage.
F16 a little bit behind on time after figuring out the composition that could get past the choke. And oh, someone gets hit by an accretion. He's so low. And GK are stepping up. They get the punish onto QLM. Someone manages to get out. It's a sleep on the TVNT, but F16 don't have the firepower to get the execution. But TVNT is running down this backline. Haku and Chaos cannot escape. And GK win the defense for now.
35 seconds left on the clock. F16 at least have a pulse bomb in their Doom ult, but no nano boost to go into this thing. They're going to need Haku to have this rally, as well as GK on their side. They're looking at Speedy to build the beat drop to consistently be able to take F16's ultimate engage.
TVNT is very far forward. This is scary. If someone gets behind him and punches him forward, this could be bad. TVNT seems to be confident. He's clearly got grasp and healthy shield. He starts to step back. F16 move forward. They're close to Nano. And Merit, well, now that he's on Tracer, it's not the Nano Blade potential. But he's hoping to hit a pulse onto Landon, but to deny this amplification matrix from him is difficult when there's not a lot of options of lanes for Merit to go down. As someone Meteor strikes, scares GK. The sound barrier keeps GK, of course, anchored as the flush from TVNT hits Haku. But with the rally, F16 are healthy. The nano hits someone. Now we're in overtime. Checkmate's Blizzard denies the closet, and F16 don't have supports. And QLM can't get the trading blows that F16 needs, so this push will end halfway to C.
I mean, that was amazing work from GK on third phase. Also, time bank management at a macro level. They played relatively well in streets. I know they did lose in overtime to get that into third phase, but eventually came through. TVNT in that last point in particular was really, really smart with the shield juggling. The backline dodged Merit's pulse bomb. That was already a win condition. Speedy re-engaged with a beat drop, and then TVNT continued that aggression with those support ultimates here towards the objective. Did really good with the shield juggling, avoided someone coming down with the meteor strike. Perfect work from him. Then immediately counter-engaged with the Gravitic Flux, came through over the top, not only found a kill with the Gravitic Flux, but then used the movement ability, the mobility of the Gravitic Flux to go over the top of the window, dive into QLM and F16's backline to disrupt everything they were trying to do. So I would say I'm a bit more confident as a GK fan today. TVNT looks a lot better considering he was kind of that worry from everybody moving into today.
Yeah, his positioning was really good. He forced someone off of the Winston. Well, you know, the Bastion helped with that. But TVNT forcing F16 into corners, controlling the chokes also at the main point. So someone took a lot of time to try and get through on the Winston. Checkmate has played 3 different heroes, by the way, from the Mei, Genji, and the Tracer. He continues to be the glue that keeps GK together. F16 had their push stopped, but it's still very far. A lot of teams struggle to even get past the bridge of point B as GK come out with the Mei once again, and they're looking for someone with these accretions.
Yeah, TVNT slowly inching in, finding out where the Ana is, and he shields him off to make sure the line of sight is ruined for Chaos.
GK free to move down the lane. Huge shot from Rojo. Someone is gone. QLM and Merit not so healthy, and they gotta connect with Chaos and Haku, who are in totally different places. Checkmate with the headshot, kind of nasty there. That was a very quick take out of GK.
Yeah, GK clinical from them. Obviously, you know, I'm gonna point out again, TVNT shields off Chaos, make sure that Ana doesn't have line of sight on someone. Someone goes down to half HP early, has to back away, shot midair by Rojo. Beautiful from GK. 5 minute and 30-second time bank now in the second phase because of it.
Oh, a 4th hero from Merit. As I'm guessing the idea of Echo is, well, if you can't break the shield, you get past it. And maybe with the win condition of throwing an anti-grenade, Chaos has been good at dealing with Sigmas in the past because of that, but GK are just overwhelming F16 off of the bridge, and you set up Rojo for success on this high ground, and F16 just can't seem to stabilize at all. This is back-to-back offensive wins for GK, but not without Merit and Chaos causing a bit of chaos on their own. GK will have to give up bridge, and this is not a push that will continue after all.
Team kind of falling apart at the seams here, and they don't want to lose at this objective as well. But like you said, this bridge is going to be important to make Dive work. Otherwise, in third phase, I don't think Dive is as good as this Sigma comp.
It all depends on how it's executed. Someone has done a good job of dodging those accretions. Merit has to not expose himself to Rojo, has to be in pack range of Haku. QLM just has to keep Rojo distracted and ideally kill him too, of course, but GK, top bridge control with Landon Ant Matrix ready to be set up, and someone doesn't want to give them time to think. He jumps up with the nano. F16 rally, well, not rally literally, but they do support someone on that dive, and bridge control back in that defensive favor. Off of a nano, that's a solid economical fight for F16.
It is. You're right. I wonder why GK did not want to use barrier there to keep Landon alive, or maybe even counter with their own ultimates. Maybe the time bank is the biggest reason. They still have a big clock to work with.
Okay, round 2 of trying to get this Ant Matrix set up, and you gotta be proactive if you're GK. They got a lot better about that at the end of Samoa. Merit is trying to not play in the line of fire there of this Sojourn, and someone is locked up against the wall. Merit copies the Sigma, hoping to build up towards that flux, but it's a one-man advantage for GK as Haku wasn't able to use the rally before he was taken out. And look at all this space that GK is taking. F16 are forced back to the choke with, well, a Duke that didn't even produce an ultimate, so GK head towards the end of point B with a lot of time.
Well, yeah, they got a lot of space, but look, someone has been distracting them on the payload the whole time, so it hasn't been able to move. GK are going to have to use their ultimates to close out here.
Last second touch there from someone, and the rally behind him from Haku, but the checkmate Blizzard is tough. It freezes Haku, it denies that rally, and Chaos is 1 HP, so he can't step up to help. And this has been back-to-back for GK, going into point C with 4 minutes. The box of victory within 1 fight territory. GK can tie the series here.
This is also where this composition comes online as well, the Sigma comp, and look how aggressive GK is playing. Off angles on the Mei, Rojo in the main side as well. There's so many different things F16 have to worry about as the dive team.
Yeah. Rojo doesn't even need to get kills. He just needs to put enough damage to force Merit back. And GK taking all the space in the world. The Mei wall behind someone he has to be committed in. And so he is with this nano. But also F16 need to anchor the card. It's 2 meters away from being capped. And it's usually someone who would be the best at doing so. QLM and Merit don't want to play close range. And you can't put it all on someone's shoulders. GK, take Midtown.
Oh my. Didn't touch the cart. That's bad. That's pretty bad. But GK looked really good on this map. Lemon, obviously, throughout Midtown, they look consistent. You know, partially, I would say that's due to the fact that the Sigma compositions with Lucio speed, with the rush style, is a lot easier to play on these maps with less flanks. I mean, dive comps are going to be a lot better on control, flashpoint even, so you can set up the engages like we saw. I believe it was even yesterday with a lot of the flanks from GK, you know, really setting up soldiers even at time to make sure they're just always flanking the supports. But if you can't stop Landon, if you can't really disrupt the Baptiste of GK, which is really hard on Midtown to do so, then you're just going to outright lose. GK on Midtown looked amazing compared to first map Samoa, so this is a good sign moving forward. I think Lemon, the series might come down to map differential. How many maps are in the pool that are good for dive? How many maps are in the pool that are good for the Sigma composition? I think at the end of the day, that's going to be a big factor.
Just macro-wise, GK evolved so much. They look more confident, they look more comfortable. It was important for them to force someone to swap off the Winston. They did so by using the Bastion, and then once someone was back on the Doomfist, you get rid of the Bastion, and Checkmate has played 4 different heroes. And I'll reiterate again, just trying to do everything to fill the gaps within this team. Whatever the problem is, he tries to come up with a solution. And F16 lost Midtown the last time they faced GK. They didn't even get point B capped at all, so F16 have made improvements of their own. GK swept them 3-0 in that semi-final when they faced them last time, and I think both these teams have changed a lot since then, and this series is going to go the distance.
You know what's changed, Lemon, is that these teams have faced Twisted Minds.
Yeah.
Like, GK goes against them earlier. Twisted Minds played against F16 in their own group stages, so, you know, going into today's matches, like, I don't mean to be like a bit of a, you know, comparing these Saudi players to somebody that, like, you know, every Saudi player will be compared to Quartz, just straight up, okay? Like, all these hit scan Saudi players, they're all consistent and good, but is anybody on Quartz's level, right? I want to see that pop-off moment out of both, you know, Rojo or QLM. They've had good examples of playing well, but I have not seen massive pickoffs from them onto, you know, Landon or Chaos. Really, that's what somebody like Quartz has been doing. And I know this is like something that every Saudi player is probably going to be compared to the end of time is going to be Quartz, and even KSA to a degree on the Sigma with TVNT on that side. It's always going to be an uphill battle because nobody's going to be able to replace the production that Quartz has brought so far unless you can step up. But these guys are all so young and are still improving, so there's still time for them to kind of learn through this experience and be able to step up to the level that Quartz has been playing at.
And I'm getting a feeling that maybe these sojourns of Rojo versus QLM are hitting maybe just more body shots. And so that's why they're not like lighting up the kill feed as maybe the top tier sojourns. And this has come down a lot to the tank macro, in my opinion, and maybe a bit of the compositional dances between the two teams of someone going from Winston to the Doomfist, to GK employing the Bastion, to going to what? The Genji, the Tracer, the Echo, the Mei, or I think Checkmate only did the Mei, and it was Merit that brought out the Echo, where the Merit Echo was definitely one of his weaker points, and I use weaker almost in quotations. Merit is so solid on a lot of heroes, but the Echo answer wasn't enough to deal with TVNT. The dupes weren't groundbreaking for F16. They tried to go to different they were forced to go to different compositions, and they still haven't cracked the egg of Midtown at the end of the day. But we have a tie series, so that makes for an exciting match nonetheless. We're going to throw it to a break, and we'll see you after this. Our series is tied up 1-1, man. This rematch between these two teams is getting spicier as it goes, and GK took another dub on Midtown.
They did. I mean, what a comeback round for them as well. Obviously, versus a team like F16, you're going to want to, be able to beat them at dive, or so beat them with rush against dive, I should say. And really, they've been doing a good job, right? If you're going to take these guys to maps where dive isn't going to be as strong, obviously you're going to need to win those maps. And if they do so in a convincing fashion like they did just now, I think this bodes well for them moving forward, because if we look at the overall map pool, if we look at what maps are going to be played, there are, I believe, more maps that the rush is going to be better on, right? There's a reason why Sigma composition has been so good. There's a reason why people one-trick it. If you try to change your composition to be map dependent entirely, it's going to be very difficult to practice and consistently get those results that you want in scrims. So overall, I'm sure this team is feeling comfortable moving forward. GK having that bounce back win is big for them moving forwards.
Yeah, and the choice of map will go back in F16's favor. I believe we have Flashpoint coming up, where if I had a crystal ball, I would assume Suravasa's coming up. That's been usually their choice. That's been their strength. And this is a Doomfist favored map, I would say, with a lot of the points on Suravasa being surrounded by walls. I think the question for me for F16 is, what is Merit gonna run? Oh, I'm so smart. But what is Merit gonna run, where he was floating between Genji when they were running the Winston, and then when the Dragon Blades the Nano Blades weren't consistently getting them dubs, then he swapped to maybe some Tracer and some Akko. Like, Merit tried a bunch of different things, and I wonder what he's gonna land on for Suravasa.
Yeah, it really is just how he's feeling, it seems, right? Like it really, I don't know if GK's loving the Genji or loving the Tracer. It's probably just merit dependent, right? Like, he just kind of just chooses. By the way, no subs for either side. That means, what is it? Yeah, Speedy's gonna keep playing. That's so odd. Are they like doing subs based if we lose a map, we sub our Lucio? That's like that seems like it, because like Oi was playing every single game yesterday, and then now today Speedy's playing every game. It's kind of odd how they're doing their subs, but regardless, for GK, probably going to be locking towards that Sigma May composition, whereas F16, like you said, it's up to them to decide. Do we want QLM on that Soldier 76, and do we want Merit on that Tracer or on that Genji?
Yeah, QLM... Was it him? I feel like someone else played Soldier on Suravasa,
I think
too.
It was him, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and even like New Queen Street are just very large maps where you can play independently as a Soldier, and you can pair that up with a Sojourn or other things. I think F16, or it was GK that tried to run this against Twisted Minds yesterday on maybe a different map, and I like the Soldier pick of just... You don't, like, it's not as much about shield break against a Sigma comp. It's about getting angles around and behind the Sigma and causing that chaos within GK.
A real scary part for F16 is how are they going to, impact Landon and Speedy at the moment, right? These flanks might impact lesser flex supports, lesser back lines, which obviously QLM is going to go for those flanks. But if you can't disrupt Landon and Speedy's flow, I don't know how GK is going to be, penetrable.
I think the checkmate is Maywalling himself up to the high ground to see if he can have better access to Merit once he eventually does climb up there, but somehow killing Landon. How does someone even get back there? I thought GK were a lot more stable when they're just on the point, they're getting checkmate on the high ground, things look okay, and all of a sudden, F16 are just puncturing them from all sides.
At least Checkmate got that delay stagger kill onto QLM, who has to come back out of spawn. So GK just need to react better there. Landon obviously getting found by someone. I think it was just in his team even. So that was just more so great play from someone in F16 to find him.
There's Merit on that high ground, and someone didn't even get a chance to enter. Just the accretion and all the damage going his way. The focus fire for GK is been really good at dealing with this Doomfist. At least they're dealing with it a lot better than the Winston, and they're able to force him off of that either way. F16 now give up the point to GK, who are building up.
Well, they should easily find these stagger kills, but they're just not. F16 is clawing themselves back into this fight. They found Speedy on the delay as well, so that's awful. While as F16 are trying to build up the Nano Blade play, do they play it slow or find this opening kill early?
Yeah, GK I think just can play slow off of the Ant Matrix, and F16 can wait for Nano, but what can you wait for? F16, every time they look like they're getting set up, they're losing people. Haku's the first to die, and to poke of all things, GK are gonna take the lead.
Yeah, Merit's getting staggered as well. Don't think he's gonna be able to live here. 70% on the board. A recontest is still in the cards here for F16, who have that Nano Blade play up, but obviously, you know, hard decision to make there. You're about 70% towards Nano Blade. Do you go in? Do you not? And it looks like they were stuck in that middle ground, which resulted in them getting picked.
The last fight for the point. A checkmate has a Blizzard. This should be locked down. F16 have Nano Blade, and Speedy doesn't have Barrier yet. This could be F16's win condition. Maywall, but Merit gets the blade. Nano connects in time. He dodges the Blizzard and might not even care if he gets frozen, but somehow dashes out. And checkmate tried to stop him, but it was the inevitable. F16, outstanding point, as they will cap for now.
Yeah, they would have liked to have beat drop there on Speedy's side. Unfortunately, wasn't very close to it. Checkmate swaps over to the Tracer now to be able to deal with either Merit or QLM too. So 80% on the board. Very, very close first point.
That's an interesting swap out of checkmate, knowing, well, if they're just going to play so fast, so loose, like a May is not going to be able to slow or do much about that, and the May wall is not going to be as impactful if they can just jump and climb around it. So checkmate on the Tracer, definitely a hero he's been comfortable on and improving on, and F16's backline continues to suffer like Speedy. Maybe that's why he's in the roster. He's like speeding and just running them down, and F16 can't handle the heat. And GK will take the point.
I'm just wondering, why the heck did Haku not rally there? Like, they could have...
I don't know.
They could have had a chance. I mean, like, why would you not commit that and try to win this first point, which is so big, because now GK have the advantage in this next point. Yes, you could at least win this next fight with the rally play, but the ultimate advantages for supports always going to be lapping you now because you're holding onto those ultimates for so long.
That first point went to 99-99 pretty much, so this is going to be close. The winner of this goes up in the series. And GK already set up. Good dash there from Merit to dodge the accretion. And he needs his team to step up and help. And this rally wouldn't be bad to use. Yeah, Haku's going to help, but is it too late? Chaos is barely brought back on his feet. And Rojo punched off the map. F16 with the man advantage. TVNT getting pushed to the corner. And that'll be an easy kill for Merit again, not even needing the dash, but using it on the land, and GK fall first, and F16 cap first.
They almost lose Chaos there towards the end. But F16, what a punch from someone there onto Rojo, making sure he wouldn't use the overclock, right? Shutting him down. GK now on their engage are going to have to deal with a Nano Blade play. F16 could absolutely turn this into a round or a point win if they make this fight long.
Yeah, Rojo's going to be playing this left side of the point. He'll have some good sight lines using the overclock. Checkmate is going to pave the way for him, but Landon is separated away. He's trying to support TVNT, who's so low. He throws the immortality, and GK, the overclock is unsuccessful. QLM shuts him up for good, and F16 don't have a backup plan. They had Nano Blade, and Chaos panics and gives it to someone. He thinks it's winnable with the anti-ult to TVNT. This should be a kill confirmer for someone, and it is. And at 99%, a 0 to 100 take. GK went out with a whimper, and we're tied 1-1 on Flashpoint.
I don't know if they needed to use the Nano Boost play. I know this is nitpicking, but realistically, you gotta, if you win that without the Nano there, obviously you move on at this point now with a Nano Blade play, you could easily turn this into a snowball. But now you turn it into an even re-engage for GK, who are coming in with their Gravitic Flux, and you've got no support ultimates against it. So either Merit or QLM are going to have to go big with their ultimate.
I guess you can rally Blade, but Hawk is going to have to play really close, and these are some tight areas that maybe a Brigida doesn't want to be in as Merit to the back with checkmate! Double pulse onto the supports, kills that fight, and kills this Blade for Merit. GK take the point first.
Oh my gosh, checkmate. Absolute insane player. Open things for them. TVNT, I think Gravitic Flux at the same time, so maybe that explains why he used that ult. But I feel like both teams right now are kind of overusing in terms of ultimates. The macro game just isn't there because there's so much on the line. There's so much pressure on both teams at the moment to move on to the grand finals.
There's a lot of pressure on Haku and Chaos. There's no immortality to negate this pulse bomb. If it sticks, you're dead. GK have a sound barrier and they don't have a blade to worry about, so what tempo can Speedy create? It's in the name. You would think they'd be aggressive off of it as F16 have QLM get dangerously low. Haku patiently waiting for the rally, now uses it as the meteor strike from someone. He's going in deep. GK's backline is in trouble, and F16 got to take the point back quickly. It's 75+%. And GK probably only need to win one fight to win round 3.
Yeah, great rally play, re-engage from Haku. GK using double support ultimates there is terrible for them. And also, Amplification Matrix is kind of shut out by dive compositions, right? If they just go on to Landon, make sure that he doesn't get any value out of that window, that's actually very, very crucial. And now in this fight, they have a nano boost play to continue the reign they have on the objective.
Yeah, Chaos and Merit are out of sync though, so at least you still get really good value. Good jump away from that pulse. Fuck, mate. That could have been big. Someone gets nanoed, and he makes good space. He forces GK out of the room, and someone can't go any further because he would have died. As Merit goes back to the high ground, and Rojo exposes himself, and he gets punched, and somehow no one from F16 took advantage of killing Rojo in that moment when he was displaced. And it's great protection from TVNT as GK bunkered down. This third point goes to GK.
Yeah, nice recontest from there, especially when it was all, you know, on Teenage to pop off or on Rojo to pop off. That was really, really crucial from them. Also, the re-engage was perfectly timed. Communication looking good for GK at the moment as they move on to this next point. F16 will have a blade without the nano boost, and that's the struggle when you get these two ultimates off sync of each other. The Genji loses value, and as does Diana.
It's round point for GK, 2-1. With F16 in position first. Merit has a blade yet again, doesn't have the nano, and someone gets just crushed by accretions, crushed by focus fire. And F16 might have not been organized in time to take this fight. And GK are gonna hunt for more, and they'll be capping first.
I think they got to take some poke here, but, you know, what the problem for F16 is there's no immortality field, right? So Checkmate's pulse bombs will get a lot more value, obviously, with no immortality in play. So if Checkmate finds these pulses, which, oh my god, Merit just found him on the stagger. That's a great opening for F16 now.
Merit still with the blade. Is gonna do this only onto the Sigma. Clearly is annoyed with TVNT's presence. Summons the immortality, and with the Amp Matrix of Landon, that is too much damage into Merit. And with the Doomfist, you don't have a really good blocker for this. Speaking of blocking, Haku blocked the accretion with the space, and GK get the point back.
And this map is just too big for a dry blade to work. Merit swaps over to Tracer now, understanding
Finally,
that he was, he was not really getting that combo off with Chaos, and also trying to match Checkmate, but Checkmate has been doing so good on this Tracer besides that one time he got picked.
Yeah, this is a great swap from keeping Checkmate in check. But this is last fight for the map. With GK, big pulse bomb, Checkmate has killed supports before. There's no immortality to negate this either. Checkmate, one stick, gotta dodge the Brigida's shield. Gets the Ana as Chaos gets away, or well, dies, but Haku bashes away. So you still have one support, and Haku has rally. QLM with the overclock. Oh, he misses the shot off the Speedy, who gets the sound barrier off, but doesn't hit TVNT, but he's safe in the immortality for now, and someone doesn't have the DPS to deal with Lamp. F16 are dismantled, and GK take Suravasa.
That was amazing from GK, and you know, to not to point out the negatives too much here, but for F16, that's the problem with having an inexperienced Ana player like Chaos, right? He should have known post bomb was coming, been more aware with his movement, but he decided to hard scope in right there, lose a lot of his mobility, and then that was just a free pulse bomb from Checkmate. You can't make those mistakes. And at the moment, Checkmate looks like the best Tracer in the tournament so far. Merit has had his moments on the Tracer, but Checkmate really popping off right there towards the end. And overall, GK look like they have a good bounce back game now to be able to take this this whole series if F16 doesn't find a solution for the next map pick.
I gotta say, that's probably more up to Haku to patrol for that tracer and mark it a bit better. You should be having your shield up. You should be looking around. You should be ult tracking this. But I'm sure Haku is trying to mostly pack Merit, who went from Genji to Tracer, and that's the guy you're babysitting this whole time. And you know, Chaos doesn't have the experience that Haku maybe does in the game, so you're also trying to help with the Ana heals when someone is just getting crushed. Like, he is taking more accretions, he's taking more focus fire. Both supports of F16 have to be on top of this, and with the lack of Baptiste, even if you get stuck by the pulse bomb, you don't have an immortality to do that. Like, Landon can just completely ignore this tracer, hear this blink come in or the pulse bomb and hit the immortality, and then start to pay attention. At least that's how I think it would go. So GK now lead the series, and they're really picking things up.
Yeah, they are looking like a strong team with their Sigma composition at the moment, right? They're going to have to match the likes of Twisted Minds if they should just heat up, honestly, at this point versus F16, because versus the dive composition, it seems like GK are you know, they understand exactly what to do, right? Is Landon's never disrupted, so is Speedy, right? They're playing together, doing super well together. You know, if you're the likes of F16, you're probably, they take us to New Queen Street, which is the push map that we're headed to. However, I still feel like overall this Sigma comp is kind of just better than Dive, especially since GK as a unit have been kind of working together very well versus it, right? Nobody's finding those pickoffs. GK are consistently moving together as a unit, allowing themselves that space to kind of just claim against F16. As soon as someone doesn't get a good punch, or as soon as Merit doesn't find a good kill, it's just over at that point for them.
If I'm a GK player or fan, I'm shaking in my boots. We're going to New Queen Street. This is F16's choice of map. Doomfist, Sojourn friendly, of course, but also there's long lanes for the Sigma to thrive for TVNT. But the reason I say shaking in my boots is that Twisted Minds just twisted their arm on this map in particular. Twisted Minds full capped against them with, like, what, 4 minutes to spare. But I think there's a caveat that GK played uncharacteristic yesterday, both in skill and also in composition, where Checkmate tried to run the Soldier to deal with the Quartz Sojourn that Rojo was unable to handle. So maybe on a more traditional composition for GK, this will look a lot different for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, New Queen Street is the New Queen Street yesterday. They're gonna want to wash in their memory for sure. I mean, that was awful from them. Today, GK, we'll see if they decide to actually rock with Rojo on the Soldier, whereas F16, obviously they're going to consistently play with someone of the Doomfist. They're not really changing that up at all, not even showing any Winston since Midtown, right? I mean, obviously you just swap Rojo over to the Bastion and that kind of counters it, so maybe someone at this point is kind of thinking they doesn't want to even try the Winston. They're just going to keep playing this Tracer alongside the Sojourn.
Yeah, for F16, again, you don't have a pulse bomb answer with the Baptiste, but you have packs that can keep Merit up, although you can also play a solo Tracer style of just going after packs only. You don't necessarily need the Brig, but it will make Merit's job easier against Checkmate, who might not have the luxury of just unlimited packs and has to stay in line of sight as Rojo just gets backhanded by Merit. You got the one-man advantage for F16 who want to push their luck, and they want to push into TVNT over on the statue side. Someone's trying to displace him, maybe get him off that high ground, but was unsuccessful. And now it's the Tracer duel between Checkmate and Merit. Both sides took a lot of damage, but it's Checkmate that re-emerges. Yeah, Merit is trying to find Haku. I don't know where he is, way too far back.
Yeah, they had the advantage and just threw it away. I mean, finding Teenage early, now he's back in this fight. Rojo, in the previous fight, I don't know where Haku was with his heals. Maybe he was packing someone or something. But F16 at the moment, that was awful since they had the huge advantage.
Yeah, Merit really trusted Haku there, and Chaos trusted somebody to help him out in that situation. Like, F16 are still waiting for heals. They're backing up as much as possible, but behind them is Checkmate, who's close to Pulse Bomb, and this could just spell a waterfall. Why is Haku not backing away more? He doesn't have Chaos, and if you don't have Inspire, maybe he was trying to proc Inspire, but F16 are fumbling the bag right now.
Yeah, this might be a back-breaking moment. You know, checkpoint coming up in just a second. TVNT just getting more and more value out of the creations, hitting long-range ones too. F16 now, if they don't win a fight here, have good support ultimates, they might lose a lot of trust in their backline.
Ooh, checkmate sneaking up, looking for chaos, gets QLM! And could have even gotten more. They were grouped up, but checkmate is still behind them. And Merritt is having a tough time marking him if he's not getting consistent heals, but someone gets to trade. And 60 meters plus for GK, who are past the forward spawns. And F16 have the respawn advantage being so close to their doors. Pulse! No, it doesn't hit land, and he had the immortality in time. But here comes someone to finish off what his team started. And the Merritt pulse bomb also has a big impact. GK get wiped out, and F16 get to show some signs of life.
Yeah, great rally there from Haku. QLM with a 3K. But most importantly of all, Sub1 with the 2K. It looked like it was basically by himself. I mean, this guy putting F16 on his back right now.
Someone is trying his best for sure, and has to be as independent as he can and getting some health back with his cooldowns, but F16, the healing department has been a struggle. QLM drops low, he receives the nano, he's got overclock, but no targets at all, especially with the shield up from TVNT over on Staircase. This is going to be a huge waste of 2 ultimates for F16, who really needed to cycle and get value out of these, considering they're down like almost 70 meters.
Yeah, I mean, that was super smart. Now Landon just walks in. Accretion again from TVNT. And then he gets Merritt too. I mean, why not, buddy? TVNT looking a lot better than he did yesterday, Lemon. Obviously, going into today, we had a lot of questions for him. He's definitely the second best Sigma, right? That's been his calling card, right? But if you're not as good as KSA, it's always going to be an uphill battle. But today, TVNT proving the narrative is wrong. He's doing great at the moment.
And now that GK are on a more traditional composition and maybe against a team more of their level, like New Queen Street has turned around so much. I'm sure they looked at tape yesterday and improved on a lot of the panic that they had issues with. Pulse or grab flux into Pulse. Yeah, Chaos is really dead. Someone gonna meteor strike probably towards Haku because he's too low to make any plays happen. 85 plus meters for GK. Like, this is getting out of hand.
Yeah, I
oh
mean,
my god.
Another accretion on the Merritt. That's just insane. Landon with the amplification matrix there as well. 100 meters on the board to 8 with 5 minutes left. TVNT finds the snagger kill onto Haku too. And that's the tough part about dive on New Queen Street specifically, is that every angle that you need to sit at as a support is super, super close to the front line of GK. So they're going to need a big pulse from Merritt maybe, or just to distract Landon hard.
I wonder how much inspiration Haku's able to proc when you just have a Sigma shield, everyone from GK plays far away, and the lack of immortality now. I hate it not only because of the pulse bombs that you can't negate, but also the grab flux. Like, Baptiste is so meta for that reason. Now F16 used 4 ultimates this fight just to try to get out of spawn. It's 120 meters for GK. F16 get the kills they need to stabilize. They have the time to come back. Like, there's 5 minutes, but F16 just don't look good on this map.
No, look at all the ults they use there. Both Rally and Nano, and then a Pulse Bomb on top of it just for a beat drop out of GK. I mean, that's not good at all. Now F16 on the re-engage. They do have this overclock, or to keep pushing the robot forward. They got the overclock, but it's against GK with 3 ults, and Checkmate's got a Pulse. I mean, he's been brutal with these so far.
F16 start off on a good foot. QLM lifted, gets a double kill before traded, but now it's all up to Haku. But against no supports of GK, F16 should be comfortable, but not super confident when you would have liked to have everyone involved in this push, so they're gonna have to play things slow.
The problem with Dive versus the Sigma comp is that you can't show a lot of point presence right on the robot. Everybody wants to flank on this team to get value. So what happens is you lose value on 1 or 2 members of your team, either with your supports being on that robot, easy to pick off, or with a diver that can't dive because he's pushing the robot. So with 3 minutes and 50 seconds now, it's a huge hill to climb as GK with the Sigma comp can keep control of the objective.
That's the tactical visor from Rojo, and there's no shields and no cover. F16 are exposed. and they haven't been able to win back-to-back fights to get more than 35 meters going. It's such a slow burn for F16, and compositionally, F16 are getting outmatched.
Yeah, I mean, you see what I mean, right? Like, they're just always playing around this robot, and because of it, GK is just like, okay, we'll take that, right? I mean, we could just catch you out while you're just trying to get some objective time, but you're never going to be able to win the outright brawl.
Well, GK stuffing the back hallway. They'll have forward spawns. F16 takes some bodies with them, and some important ones at that. There's no supports for GK. And QLM is having a better day, of course, but F16 still have to come back with a 90-meter push while still not being successful at winning more than one fight in a row. So they'll get back to this neutral point fairly easily, but what is next for F16?
I mean, they got out Checkmate's Pulse Bomb, right? That's something, but Landon's got the Baptiste Amplification Matrix, and you know, we talk about the lane, the differential. It does make a big deal. This guy's one of the best Baps in the world. And Merritt gets picked again.
Yeah, Merritt is trying to make his way to the back and with a pulse bomb, and this soldier of Rojo has been so terrifying, like tactical visors. There's no good answer to that. Him being so far away and on his own island, Merritt has to also keep Checkmate in mind. Merritt can't do it all on his own, and F16 are dismantled at that neutral point, and GK will get forward spawns and maybe extend past the 120-meter mark.
I mean, at this point, F16 just lucky this is a first to 4 Lemon, because this map is not going their way at all. 2 minutes left. The cart's almost in the objective. Honestly, this might just be an FF moment. Let the cart go into the point.
They gotta go out with a bang. F16 leave a nano to someone who's getting stunned by the accretion. It's some space for QLM's overclock. Merritt's pulse bomb doesn't hit, and F16 are just splashing in the water right now, hoping to have a bigger dent into GK than they have. And they're good at getting out of spawn for sure, but it's the neutral point that they can't seem to get any momentum generated from.
This has got to be like one of those situations, like it's, well, here we go, Teenage, by the way, or Rojo with the tac visor. GK obviously not giving up on this either, even though they got on the spawn. They're looking to close it out here. No way.
From getting full capped on to meters away, the same thing to F16. How does your own medicine taste? GK are on match point.
Ooh, telling him to shush, buddy. I mean, that's awesome from the likes of GK. What was that? I was taking a selfie of TVNT there, but 3-1 up in the series now. I mean, honestly, you can chalk that up maybe to the map pool, right? Obviously, push being that map, it's going to be harder for the dive team consistently, just because, you know, you're always going to have to play around that payload, and it's never going to be easy as you try to set up your dives. It just felt like it was honestly bullying F16 supports and everybody on that team. Merritt at points getting picked by Landon, by Rojo. QLM, like you said, was having a good game, but what can you do when even the fights that you win, still you're overusing ultimates, you're not truly winning outright? You're just, it's the problem with push, right? Even with every fight you win, you still have to win 2, maybe 3 to even give yourself an edge.
Yeah, F16, I think it's a support canyon between these two teams. Like, I've already harped enough about the lack of Baptiste not giving them a good answer to Pulse Bomb and Grav Flux. You don't have a sound barrier to have a good answer to the Grav Flux, or really any overwhelming ultimate from the DPS side of things. Haku's hesitated too much on the rallies. Chaos and Haku sometimes miss out on healing Merritt immediately, so when F16 do get any momentum, they take chip damage, and then they are not able to move forward at any point. Someone is trying to make big plays. QLM has had a better performance on the overclock when he does have some time and some space to operate. But I think it's a compositional difference, and mostly in the supports, that is making the biggest difference in that map.
And on that, I mean, just to be the good cop in the situation, it does feel like, just to reiterate for any of our viewers that are just tuning in, Chaos is a tank player playing flex support because the original flex support for this team didn't meet the standards of the team environment. So because of that, it's a tank player on flex support. Haku also not on his signature hero Mercy. So there's a lot of factors, meta dependent and stuff that are kind of leading to the backline underperforming to where you would like it. So honestly, it's just more of a shout out to these guys for playing, the best they possibly can, because realistically, at the end of the day, you can only be the best player that you could be, and that can't be stressed enough, right? I mean, I know when I played the game a lot, the worst coaches I had, which were some of the best coaches in the game, always would be like, hey, why don't you play more like Jonak? Why don't you play more like Iris?
Be Jonak.
just be like these guys. And you're like, well, unfortunately, I was born in the United States of America, and specifically Arizona. I'm not a Korean freak of nature
you
that can
gotta
pop
listen to
off.
Christopher and Commander. You just gotta try harder, dog, man. Come on, man. Just try harder, and you can be as good as the Korean backliners.
Yeah, that's why it does feel bad on that point to have to roast Haku and Chaos, but they really are doing the best they can.
No fun. Do check out their podcast though. That is a good discussion point. GK on match point 3-1. Last time these two teams faced, it was a sweep in favor of GK, where they finally have downloaded how to deal with this Doomfist dive. And someone, that doesn't have a good target to collapse on. There are so many threats, and he is getting hit by accretions a lot more than usual, so TVT has done a good job of stepping up and improving his Sigma. And also the composition that GK chose, namely Checkmate. He's been playing almost every hero under the sun. This time it was the Soldier, I believe, and that was all over the place. That was something hard for F16 to deal with. Either way, I don't have a good answer for F16, especially on big maps like that where you can't funnel GK into one area to fight in.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough decision that they have to make, what map to go to next. But before that decision is made, we have to go to a short break. When we come back, we'll see if they can make that comeback next coming up.
It's match point for GK in this lower bracket final, one map away from their spot in the grand final against Twisted Minds to get that rematch. And F16 are still searching within their minds and trying to get spiritual a little bit about what is the answer to GK.
There really, at the moment, isn't any. I mean, if we look at the stats, we talked to our analysts about this during the break. At the moment, Checkmate is popping off on the Tracer. Meanwhile, whenever Merit swaps the Tracer to try to get whatever he wants done, he's just not doing as well at the moment. Currently, Checkmate has, at least on the last map, three deaths, while Merit had 10. So really, at the moment, it is a bit of a Tracer diff, but also the whole team really not performing up to expectations. Whether or not it's compositional wise or roster wise, that's up for debate. But at the moment, really, F16 need to do a bit of soul searching. Potentially, the map choice is going to be a bigger part of that because it could make their lives a lot easier depending on how much high ground is given to Haku and Chaos.
Well, F16 will have our choice of map, and Escort is coming up, so we'll wait to see what their choice is. And yeah, maybe Mara goes back to the Genji, and at least you get a better high-value target with the Nano. You have a better wing condition off of the Nano Blade. I think Mara just got off of it after Midtown, just thinking that, well, GK step up past him and ignore Merit and go after everyone else, and then Merit on a solo Nano Blade can't exactly go 1v5 all the time, at least consistently. So thinks the flexibility of Tracer may be more helpful in these neutral fights. Maybe he's trying to mark Checkmate, which is just the better Tracer. So does Merit want to link up with someone better and go back to Genji and have just QLM, Haku, and Chaos hold their own against the Checkmate Tracer? F16 gotta make a decision, gotta choose, like, pick your poison, essentially.
Well, yeah, so we saw on Samoa when they were on the Genji specifically, whenever they nano-bladed play, it was just working out for them, right? It was so consistent. And the moment that we saw in Suravasa where everything kind of flipped was when Chaos and Merit got off sync. I mean, that was absolutely to their detriment because then they were blading without nano, then they were nanoing without blade, and neither were working together very well at all. It was an important synergy that they just lost out on. So maybe they can just resync. Like, obviously, you got to take teamfight losses, probably not use a dry blade, not use a nano. I know a lot of these players are very high level and they think they can clutch in situations with either a dry blade or a nano on someone, for example.
Ooh.
But it's not going to be as consistent.
F16 bring us to Circuit, and I don't think we've seen this map all bracket. Then again, I didn't watch group stage. This might be something special prepared, but this is a Sigma map. So F16 might be falling back to just trying to pull off the mirror because clearly the Doomfist isn't... it's not even just someone. It's the Doomfist composition that's not working.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I'm curious if F16 actually do decide to take the mirror again because... that was something we mentioned before today where F16 were kind of that dive team and they were looking good on it whenever they weren't playing against GK. But maybe today, like you said, it's kind of confused some things for them. We'll see if this could be a bait pick. Maybe having GK play on this map, on the Sigma composition could be to their benefit for some reason. I'm not sure why it would be, with F16 potentially playing the dive, but I think you're 100% right here, Lemon. They're going to be sticking more towards that Sigma comp, maybe taking that mirror, but I'm definitely not as confident as they might be on it.
And a Widow from Rojo, but against Merit, ooh, good luck. Merit is just one of the best.
Oh,
and QLM on the Bastion. Since you have these long lanes, Bastion might have some space to operate off the Ant Matrix. This can really punish a Sigma out of position. So looking forward to see what F16 end up on as Haku's playing the piano, hopefully singing a different tune for F16. And Checkmate's on the Sojourn instead maybe of a Hanzo, which is another option for defensive Circuit, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, Merit sticking on the Symmetra as well, walking out of spawn, so unfortunately no Widow for him to deal with Rojo. But they already go for the aggressive TP play. QLM just went alone.
What? What was that? Definitely wasn't supposed to go in alone, and maybe Mare was supposed to be I don't know. Maybe the teleporter got destroyed. That was wacky.
Yeah, that was definitely something. I mean, in this fight, hopefully you're looking to reset, mentally recharge after that one, because that's a bit of a tilter. Now GK just have a bit more time to work with this double hit scan.
All right, now F16 going in as a team, but Speedy was ready with Boop, so they all dropped to the low ground, so not an ideal spot. Someone is isolated, but hey, against TVNT, he ends up winning that as F16 had teleported past TVNT. They come back to help someone win the 1v1. It's not going to be an easy road for F16 without Chaos on the map, and it's kind of rare to see Chaos even off of the Ana, but this is a composition that is getting the ball rolling for F16 at least.
Yeah, Landon getting staggered there, stayed behind for a bit too long. However, the cart wasn't pushed very much, so actually it's not going to be in a massive advantageous position for F16. GK will have time to come back in. Double A Matrix is up. The Sojourn ultimate up for checkmate in just a bit.
F16 have Amp, but Landon's going to have his earlier, so GK can stabilize off of this, push F6 back corner. But maybe you can wait for a moment where F16 is a little bit more committed as GK teleport back. TVNT starting to get overwhelmed. Landon presents the Amp Matrix in front of him, but so does Chaos. But Chaos exposes himself around that corner, gets caught by Landon's Amp, and F16 will still get the job done. They did enough damage that the lack of heals isn't going to matter, and F16 cap point A.
That was nice. I mean, what you see out of the top Symmetra teams with their TP plays, a lot of times they'll fake it. Look at that. They distracted. Even if it's for a split second, it distracted the DPSs of GK with the TP. They faked it out, came around the corner with the Baptiste Ant Matrix instead. Clean work from F16. Super smooth from them. I'd like to see more of that play.
Cart moving steadily. Good space by someone. A little bit deep. A went through mate, and QLM is shredding them all apart. And GK just can't seem to find a moment to stabilize. And the Photon Barrier might have been even an overinvestment from Merit, but they're like, well, we might as well full send it. We might as well get the full team wipe. And Rojo and Checkmate are simply victims. Landon staggered too. F16 are almost at the end of B.
Yeah, Merit looking good on the Sim. This is why Sim's so strong too. Look, they had to walk out. Speedy had to walk out and deal with all those Sim turrets. Now this position is so easy to defend, but it's against a lot of ults.
Okay, the artillery strike from QLM to stop this choke. GK come out with the sound barrier as Merit starts generating DPS off of the Sigma, eats the accretion, and someone saves the day, taking out TVNT before he can finish off his kill, and F16 will cap.
When did F16 get this good at the Sigma composition? 4 minutes and 30 seconds now, third phase. GK used ultimates as well just to break out of their own spawn and get into that objective. Now have to deal with F16, who have Gravitic Flux and Baptiste Amplification Matrix. They're dealing with this macro game incredibly well right now.
F16 have so much momentum behind them. Never mind. Mary got shot by Rojo. GK should definitely go forward and get more as Checkmate took an accretion from behind. He's able to ice block. And someone can turn this around. Spawns are really close for F16, but TVNT from the top rope slams down onto Chaos. And F16, this is just not a fight you can salvage without your Baptiste, so someone is hoping to get out with his life, but GK are coming in aggressively to finish off what they started, as F16 were hoping to punish this aggression. GK are looking for more. The immortality from Chaos is keeping them still standing, as QLM's Bastion is doing a lot of damage, but the kills are going F16's way.
Yeah, dude, TVNT is like just, you know, riding right now. I mean, like he's walking the tightrope, you know, between feeding and doing his hardest to just like get in and get value. He was going so low every single time there, but Landon was there to back him up, keeps them in the ultimate advantage, as well as just having overall wins right now. This is super important to keep momentum on the side.
F16 trying to take control of the top bridge. As QLM, I thought he got fluxed, but he actually got Maywalled up by Checkmate. As Merit tries to protect his team with the Photon Barrier. They TP to the other side and they catch Rojo with the nade. QLM with a massive double kill to get the ball rolling for F16, but Landon has been just a silent killer with the double kill at the end of B to now getting big picks. And this fight, F16 are still getting some push going, but not much further.
That was beautiful out of the supports of GK to equalize it. Speedy got one, Landon got one. They combined for those 2 kills. Also committed the Blizzard and the Overclock, which probably gave them a lot of that opportunity. F16 at least have some ultimates going into this fight, but they're going to need to engage with them.
F16 trying the same thing again, but this time it's the Amp Matrix, and Checkmate blocks off his own Amp Matrix. That you would think that would come from F16's side, who have now their own Amp Matrix. They'll round this corner, but GK's not even letting them get a nice lane going. F16 have an Amp Matrix now down low, but GK have the high ground so they can take an angle away from this. F16 are also having the card being pushed. Merit must have just teleported past this, and GK haven't fallen back to deal with this. GK have their sights set forward to deal with the frontline battle as F16 are all disorganized and not able to distract GK enough.
Yeah, 1 minute and 30 seconds left there. At least Merit's pushed it into last fight territory, so if F16 get a good fight win here and now, they could probably push it in because it's so close to that objective.
F16 have to, I think, approach this as a team. I like the creative ideas of Merit just doing his own thing, teleporting past this. The grab flux could be a big opening, especially when GK are playing so stacked on top of each other. But it's how F16 execute. The grab flux only gets them low. It's going to be a team effort to take GK down. Here's someone dodging the accretions, dangling below TVNT. The immortality from Landon saves the day, but the response is just that much louder from TVNT. F16 have their backs against the wall, and they don't have any other ultimates to say much about this. GK had the Ant Matrix and Landon and Teenage or Rojo on fire, so F16 are back to the drawing board.
It is an absolute bloodbath out here right now, Lemon. Just both teams trading blow for blow. This is one of the earliest third point holds I've seen in a while, and it's been working for F16, who have got the clock all the way down to 23 seconds.
The last push, and you gotta do this without Merit. This is just not ideal, but F16 did get a good enough push going. You wait for the grass to be gone, and Checkmate throws the Blizzard. This will seal the deal for GK's defense to send F16 packing right where they came from, and this push will end halfway to point C.
I don't know how this keeps happening for F16 where they have ultimates after the game is over. Like, that should not happen, Lemon. Like, why does QLM still have Overclock? Why on first map did both Chaos and Haku have the support ultimates? Like, this keeps happening to F16 where they're just not being proactive with those ultimates. So, I don't know. We need to see something more out of them. They look super good, you know, through first and second phase, and then just lost all of the momentum once GK won a few team fights.
F16, I mean, it was just, I think, a better defense out of GK. They have just stepped up tremendously from yesterday. Their defense was so hard to dislodge. Every time F16 had an ult fight, GK are trading back and forth. Landon, just DPS-wise, is probably gapping Chaos. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Landon's also just the third DPS on the field. And F16 having issues executing ults when they just don't have the right lanes to use an amp on, to have their Bastion be in a safe position. The teleport plays are a little bit selfish from Merit, where he's making his own magic happen, going to the card, trying to cause distractions, and F16 are at least not beating a dead horse. They're trying different ways of approaching these fights. It's just not working. Yeah,
I mean, and you know who I've been super impressed with too, Lemon, is Speedy on the side of GK. He's been super consistent for them. I mean, just a really top-tier Lucio. Besides Kellex, I think he's got to be one of the best Lucios in the tournament thus far. Getting his own kills, playing aggressive when he needs to, and then coming back with perfectly timed sound barriers and boots.
We'll see how GK can lean on their supports more, as we already noticed that kind of gap on New Queen Street. For now, GK are not going to really be held at this corner the same way F16 did before to try and force more fights. F16 will just have a stronger fight here, but they're not taking as much damage, hoping to build that Amp Matrix, but a big pick onto Rojo gives the green light for F16 to step forward and farm up these ults that they need to hold point A.
I mean, TBNT getting deleted there at the very end as well. Landon will get staggered. F16, good first fight win for them, as well as a bit of an opportunity to build up some ultimates. Rojo, like you said, getting picked early was super detrimental, not only for their overall win condition in that fight, but now QLM is going to be leading in terms of ult charge for the DPS lineups.
F16 did a great job of just getting aggressive and getting that first pick, although it was kind of felt a bit lucky or unlucky depending on whose fan you are of, but now big ults are coming up and a grab flux, someone generating that much quicker. QLM's Bastion is forcing GK into cover, and Matrix will be next on the menu, but it's Landon that pops his first. I'm curious why F16 didn't do it around this corner immediately, but nonetheless, it's not like Landon's Ant Matrix made that much of a difference. Someone just slams them down, and F16 hold the defense at bay.
Yeah, F16 kind of confused GK there with some TP plays, and then also eventually Speedy kind of got caught out by the railing side towards the coast where that statue is. So realistically, I think that for GK, they kind of got split up in that fight, resulting in then someone coming back through with the Gravitic Flux after they found Speedy.
TVNT ready to be proactive in this fight with the grab flux, the teleport. I wonder if F16 got out of this. Someone is now getting blizzarded, and the sound beer is really well timed out of Haku, but someone is still getting focused down too much, and the photon beer from Merit wasn't enough to protect him. As what? Okay, he got booped. I thought Checkmate was just being silly there. GK, even without Checkmate, are doing a good job with that late barrier from Speedy. They have the sustained advantage, so now GK are just in cleanup mode.
That was insane. I mean, the boop by Haku could have turned things, but then GK brought it back off of their own boop from Speedy and the rest of the squad coming together. They have ultimates as well going into the Streets phase. That took them a bit longer than they would have liked. F16 actually had a solid first point hold, even though we're moving into Streets, which is always going to be difficult for the defense here.
Rojo is down. Not a good start for GK's momentum that they would have liked to take up this highway, up this curve, and now TVNT has isolated himself, and you're not getting out of this situation, and F16 hunting down their prey. Oh, Landon manages to rejoin them, but now he's just a victim himself, so F16 managed to farm up some good ultimates too out of this. And this could be a point where F16 start to come back in the series. They're taking some big wins.
Yeah, that was a bit overzealous by Landon. Sure, you get QLM, but then eventually you're going to get rained down. You can only go and do so much as Baptiste, right? You only have 2 cooldowns in a jump, so realistically that was smooth out of F16, and Merit is looking a lot stronger on the Symmetra than he was on Tracer.
Absolutely. GK. Now you're going to get hit by this grab flux. That's a 3-man from someone, and it gets stunned! What a hit by TVNT! And QLM's double kill is just spelling disaster for GK, who head back to spawn.
Even though TVNT hit the Gravitic Flux, QLM decided, I'm just going to pop off here from the high ground since everybody is ignoring me, and he just killed 3 people by himself. Now they're towards the spawn. Against GK, they're going to have to walk out against so much damage, and Checkmate was pulled out. Okay,
let's see how long this spawn cam holds. F16 might have bitten off more than they can chew. They don't have the Bastion, and Merit at least has generated a lot of DPS. The wall is to force GK out of spawn if they want to do damage, and we'll see if it really has value. The sound beer is really what's going to help GK get out of spawn, and guess what? Rojo's overclock helps them win the fight too, so GK managed to dig themselves out of the hole.
Wait, someone still got a kill on the Landon staggered. I mean, that could be huge in this next fight because he's got the Matrix and has some time to walk. So both F16 and GK looking to win right here and now. Minute 30 seconds left. F16 are actually looking pretty solid on the defense so far. But how solid can they be against the Blizzard, Gravitic Flux, and Amplification Matrix?
And the Flux starts. You can place the Blizzard right below so it can't be grasped, but the sound barrier, how much cushion does this create for F16? Haku can't save the team, and someone can't clap back with a Flux of his own. But F16 are not dead yet. Without a tank, they'll still try to vanquish GK, who are not letting them have any room to breathe. TVNT has a chokehold on this backline as GK advance to cap point B.
Yeah, I mean, nice work by GK there, not panicking. closing out, even though they couldn't get the kills onto F16 with their Blizzard and Gluvidic Flux, at least on the DPS, is because they TP'd out with Merit and QLM. They still got the kill onto someone, and then after that, they just closed out on Merit, who was surely going to have a lot of high charge. So as long as they just didn't die to him, they were totally just fine. Now in third phase, they have 2 minutes.
Not a lot of time for GK. This map can go either way. Will GK go to the grand final or not? F16 are going to make sure that this is going to be the most challenging process as possible.
Minute 37 seconds left. One because of someone's Gravitic Flux. Solo. GK didn't have any counter to it. Beat drop not there. Immortality Fill is going to keep you alive for a bit longer. However, you want to really just match it with the sound barrier. With a minute and 20 seconds left now, F16 are going to have their own ult engaging.
Well, GK are coming up with some important ults of their own, but fake teleport play as Rojo makes sure to deal with that so he doesn't get surprised as the Photon Bear from Merit seals off Rojo from this fight, and F16 have a free lane to descend down. The GK are happy to give up that space. It's not a guaranteed fight win for F16 as they try to teleport out of the Flux. TVNT won't get as much value, but it's a one-man advantage for GK without Chaos.
Oh no.
F16 are suffering in resources, and I think somebody is caught behind. The defense is behind the cart, and GK are heading to the box of victory.
Oh no. Yeah, they needed to die there. Maybe as 3 they could live, get the retest with the barrier, but no, Haku's dead! Oh my god, so is Merit! Rojo shut everything down to bring them to the grand finals! Yeah,
GK have done it! What a play from Rojo to save this fight, to punish F16. 4-1 goes in favor of GK. They go to face Twisted Minds. That rematch is gonna be different, and surprising that F16 with all these different compositions, the Doomfist, the Winston, going back to the mirror. F16 looked better on the mirror, but nonetheless fell on their faces at the end.
Oh, that is insane that Haku could not get the sound barrier off there. Teenager, Rojo, whatever you want to call him, truly stepped up when he needed to. And he's going to have to again in the grand finals tomorrow versus Quartz, who is arguably the best player in all of Saudi Arabia. So that's going to be a matchup you're not going to want to miss. But meanwhile, today, you're right, Lemon, GK can celebrate. F16 has been eliminated, and they're moving on to the grand finals. What a way to do it, too.
Hey, third place, nothing to scoff at. Handshakes all around. F16 lock in $21,000 US. Rocker in fourth with almost $11,000 US. And our top 2 are guaranteed a minimum of $32,000 with around 43K going to first. Twisted Minds seem destined to win, but the only team that has been able to take a map off of them is GK, who I think we both agree that they were getting boomed mentally and really physically as well, trying to figure out the right composition to deal with Quartz. But GK today showed that they've made the improvements. TVNT looks tremendously better compared to yesterday. Checkmate is flexing all over the place. His Mei was such a nuisance. His Soldier was such a nuisance on New Queen Street. And Rojo definitely showed signs that he can maybe go toe-to-toe with Quartz.
Yeah, I think he definitely can. They just need to be, like in that last fight, decisive with their ultimates, right? The overclock is what won them that entire map. If Haku got that sound barrier off, I think we would probably be going to another map in this series. So if Rojo can play like he did in certain maps, see, that's the biggest thing though, right? I mean, like we talk about it like, you know, he's popping off, right? It's not like Rojo's a bad player by any means, but what separates these good players from the great players is that consistency, especially on Sojourn, that you need out of these players. And you know, Rojo does have it in him. He's shown flashes. However, you know, he's going to have to do it every single map if they want to beat Twisted Minds.
Yeah, I think Merit just had all his strats downloaded. He kept trying to go for fake teleport plays. He obviously bonked the first one where QLM solo TP'd. It might have gotten destroyed, but then once they did TP in, Speedy booped them down. It was hard to get organized around this teleporter, and GK just read every single play. Like Merit even solo TP'd behind as a distraction, where Rojo, yeah, he shot the teleporter, and then that was somewhat of a distraction, but Merit didn't have the same impact that he would have had maybe on a different hero. And it's more because GK were just that much more spatially aware.
Yeah, they were. I mean, super clean from GK. First map, obviously, like you said, it was just like F16. They kind of, or maybe GK was testing the waters, kind of understanding how to play against the dive. Also, you know, you talked about those angles as well. It was harder for Rojo to get a lot done on that map specifically. Also, Checkmate was kind of stuck on that Mei instead of playing Tracer like he did later on. So that could have been another big impacting thing that lasted on them. But you're right. You know, for the side of F16, they made it pretty far in this tournament. And for them as a team, you're right. That's nothing to hang. That's something you can hang your hat on at the very least. Is you have some of the best players in the world. You've got someone on your team in Checkmate. These guys are super talented, some of the best in the game. But really, it just goes to show no matter how many talented players you have, you still have to play the game of Overwatch, which is incredibly team-oriented. And if GK can consistently play like they did today, I think they have a good chance to win, even win the grand finals besides take a few maps.
Yeah, and after what I saw from yesterday out of GK, I had vibes that F16 were going to be the ones that went out of the finals. So I'm just so pleasantly surprised that GK were able to maintain composure, use that 24 hours between the two matches to pick themselves up, to figure out how can Checkmate have an answer to what are the threats on the other team. And Checkmate knows how to assess those. He has the experience to do so. And as a team, GK have gone through an evolution compositionally as a team. They've improved, and they could really have Twisted make a run for their money. But especially one person who stepped up today was Rojo. The Sojourn gap was real. The overclocks were incredible. And I'm looking forward to see how Rojo is going to match up against Quartz tomorrow in the grand final. Speaking of Rojo, we actually have an interview on the stage, so let's go say hello.
رجعنا لكم بعد نهاية المباراة الوحيدة والاستثنائية في هذا اليوم اللي كان في اللور فاينل. ومثل ما شفنا فريق جي كي هم اللي يقدروا يفوزون بهذه المواجهة بنتيجة 3-1. نورمال، أتركك المجال، نبي نسمع الأسئلة.
Oh my. GK Esports on the stage and right now heading to the grand finals, and it's the revenge match that they won, GK. But we want to know, how does he feel after winning this match and heading to the grand finals?
يعطيك العافية نورمال، مثل ما سمعنا نبي نسمع شعورك بعد الفوز، وحاب أقول لك ألف مبروك.
الله يبارك فيك، والحمد لله والله فرحانين جدا، والحمد لله مبسوطين، كنا متفائلين بالفوز إن شاء الله، وضمننا المركز الثاني الحمد لله.
شفت اللي سمعتها نورمال؟
أنا شفت اللي سمعته يا OG. They were so happy about winning this game and heading to the grand finals, and they were optimistic also going against F16. But right now, the second question, why did they lose the first match? I'm wondering that, OG.
كلنا يعني منصدمين ومستغربين من الخسارة اللي كانت في الماب الأول. فوش سبب الخسارة؟ وش اللي حصل معاكم بالضبط؟
صراحة انلكي والله، طبعا كلنا كنا تعبانين وكان في لاك اوف كوميونيكيشن، كان يعني وورم اب المابات الجايه بس
يعني. وقدرتوا تعوضون بعدها بعد ما خسرتوا في الجيم الاول؟ قدرتوا تعوضون
الحمد لله، قدرنا نعوض والحمد لله فزنا.
يا عيني مثل ما سمعنا.
أتوقع الحين سمعت اللي سمعت. There was a lack of performance from GK Esports on the stage for the first match against F16. They managed to pull off the win after the games we saw from the first 3 matches. But right now, the most important question, we want to know, are they prepared to go against Twisted Minds and get their revenge on the grand final?
نفس ما ذكرت اللحظة المنتظرة والجيم الأخير اللي بيكون جي كي ضد تويستد مايند، فكيف تجهيزاتكم وكيف بيكون وضع الانتقام ضد فريق تويستد مايند؟
ان شاء الله بنتدرب اكثر وبنستعد لتويستد مايند ان شاء الله. صح انهم خصم صعب بس بنكون مستعدين ان شاء الله
باذن الله. مثل ما سمعنا بيكونوا مستعدين في المباراة الأخيرة ضد فريق تويستد مايند.
Right now, Rolfo is saying, Twisted Minds, be ready. GK Esports is coming for you on the grand finals. We'll be ready on the stage tomorrow. That's it. Thank you so much for answering all the questions, Rolfo. GK Esports 4-1, and they have the grand finals tomorrow, OG.
بيكونوا متواجدين في الجراند فاينل ضد فريق تويستد مايند في النهائي الكبير. فشكر للاعب روهو على المقابلة من فريق جي كي اي سبورت بعد فوزهم بنتيجة 4-1. أما أعزائي المشاهدين والحضور لازم نروح للاستديو عشان نتناقش ونتكلم أكثر بخصوص اللي حصل معنا في مجريات هذه المباراة.
And that's the interview. But before we go any further, Studio, let's talk about more the game. So take it away, Studio.
Welcome back to the STC Play Analysis Desk. I'm Commander X. I'm joined as always by Chris, and we've maybe got the rematch in the Grand Finals we all expected, but it wasn't a smooth ride at all for GK in this series.
Yeah, maybe felt similar to the big game that we had yesterday, where first two maps felt close, and then it felt like actually one common theme that we've had across this whole tournament is whatever happens on Flashpoint is it kind of gets away from one team. That always seems to be the most one-sided game mode. But I certainly don't think it was a stomp even as we went to the last map. So we got a pretty competitive game, but I think GK were able to kind of catch their breath, stabilize, didn't get swept away after losing map 1, and then deservedly won in the end.
It was a pretty worrying start as well, because they lost 2-0 on Samoa, and they didn't just lose versus the dive, which is what we expect from F16. F16 kind of caught everyone off guard by taking the Sig mirror on Volcano, and not just taking it, but winning it as well.
Yeah, I think that's maybe where you would really start to see some alarm bells from GK thinking, oh, wow, we destroyed these guys on the Sigma a few days ago. Now we're losing. Are we panicking? Is this a choking issue? Whatever it is. But they were able to get their redemption on map 5 when the Sigma came back out, and they were able to make some pretty crucial adaptations to playing against the dive. That kind of made maps 2, 3, 4 relatively comfortable in the end.
We saw the first iteration of the dive v Sigma come out on the Midtown, and it felt for the most part, GK felt pretty comfortable. It felt like, we always say with the Broadcom versus dive, they should really hard win the neutrals, and especially when we look at GK's attack, they almost capped second point before F16 even got an ult.
Yeah, I think when we watched F16 yesterday, we maybe spoke a lot about how they were winning these neutrals, they were getting these picks. That was a much less of a factor. I think that Rojo was able to contain QLM very well. TVNT wasn't really making any mistakes that were resulting in him dying too quickly, which meant on the fights that F16 were winning, they did have to invest the ults. And I remember on map 2, they were able to just mess up one nano blade timing where they kill Chaos just before he gets the nano off, and then all of a sudden the cycle is interrupted, and then that leads to good things.
It always helps if you can interrupt that big nanoblade finisher, especially on payload maps, because we saw that's how they capped Midtown first point. Is they failed and just kind of died in the first fight, but they died slowly enough. Now they built nano and blade, so then 2 minutes in, they nanoblade, they capped first point. They interrupt that cycle, and it was TVNT who we can still see making some plays now in the Colonel's Choice highlights, who actually really stepped up compared to his performance yesterday.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about them at times, especially on map 1, because I started to see a few rock trades that were going against him again. But I think especially once we got to the dive, I think actually he had a very good series, him with Checkmate. I think that there was obviously a lot of highlights to talk about, but I think that the Tracer adaptation was very interesting. I think that's maybe where we need to focus some of our attention. The Sigma teams, we've seen teams try to run Sim, we've seen teams try to run Echo, some May. This was the first time we really saw a team use Tracer as an answer to the dive, and it seemed to work very well. What did you think of, how did Checkmate play, and how well did he play?
So initially when you think about putting a Tracer into this composition, because we've seen Team USA do this, we've seen Florida obviously do that with Checkmate, and a lot of the time, the initial thought of a Tracer is, can I mark the Doomfist? Can I mark the enemy DPS? Can I stop them setting up? But Checkmate actually played it a lot more aggressively. He was a lot closer to TVNT's position, and his decision was, I'm not going to worry too much about marking Merit or marking someone. I'm going to push with my Sigma. I'm going to put pressure on his Ana and Brig, and it's fair to say, especially on New Queen Street, Chaos life became absolute hell. It became so difficult for him. He was dying first in fights, wasn't able to get nades off. All the resources were pulled backwards into dealing with Checkmate, which all of a sudden meant Landon had a way easier time dealing with the dives, just someone and Merit, no nades to worry about.
Yeah, I think we've spoke about this idea that if we have like a Sigma ult, if we get an Ana in it, we have a really good chance to get a kill. This is doubly true if I have a Tracer sitting underneath the Ana when she gets fluxed and dropped to the floor. We maybe mentioned earlier on, we said, oh, well, if Merit wants to play the Tracer, it's actually pretty difficult, right? We have to find a way to stick the one of the supports when they don't have Lamp. This isn't the case for Checkmate when he's playing against Anna Break. Any stick that he gets will just be a teamfight win. So I actually think that this Tracer swap made a lot of sense. I think it's actually something that Florida did a little bit in the playoffs in the Overwatch League Grand Final, so clearly something that he has experience with, and we have to see that Checkmate is absolutely one of the best Tracers in the world.
You really saw that difference as well. You even think back to those Overwatch League Grand Finals, that winning moment on Esperanza starts with Checkmate just killing both of the Houston backline, and he certainly gave same treatment over to F16 here. Chaos and Haku had a really hard time, and all of a sudden, once you start pulling that Brig resources away from Merit, away from someone, they don't find these aggressive nades all the time. Not only do you get kills on the backline, you also stop the dive looking more aggressive, and I think this is maybe where we saw the confidence in dive fade away for F16.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one thing that the Tracer is also able to do is we're able to mark the enemy divers very well. The Doomfist isn't able to set up around these corners or like get ready to engage. He always has to be worried about getting bullied out by a Tracer. I think if you have a really strong Baptiste, it is possible to pocket a Tracer through some pretty tricky situations. It's definitely not the easiest job for a Lucio Bap to pocket a Tracer, but Landon was clearly able to do a good job of it today, which meant that not only was Checkmate applying a lot of pressure to the back line, he was also stopping someone from being able to play as freely as he would want on the front line. And we actually saw a lot of Tracer versus Tracer kills when Merit was also on Tracer, even though from a purely Overwatch theory point of view, Merit has Adder and Break should have a much better time getting pocketed than Checkmate.
We saw Merit try and make that adaptation where he played just to stop Checkmate getting all this value, but it really didn't actually seem to slow Checkmate down at all, which maybe is kind of obvious ultimately that the main Tracer player for Florida Mayhem is better than the hit scan player on Tracer for Florida Mayhem. But the gap certainly felt big on New Queen Street. Our casters pointed it out. 3 deaths for Checkmate, 10 deaths for Merit. No surprise to see who wins that map.
Yeah, I think that we can maybe really start to talk about F16 and did they make a mistake in terms of how they use their import slots, how they were able to I don't know if this team was one that should be pushing higher than third place. It's really hard to criticize them too much because third place is a pretty decent showing. But when you sign the Overwatch League MVP and the Grand Finals MVP, I think that this is actually, it feels like a tactical mistake to have played my hit scan MVP on Flex DPS the whole tournament.
I think especially when I want to give Merit a lot of credit to come in and do as well as he has done on Genji and Echo is not something a lot of DPS players, especially hit scan players, can come and do. Genji and Echo aren't just straightforward plug and play heroes. And even though he struggled on the Tracer, it still just seems a waste, right? He is one of the best hit scans in the world. We're in a meta. Look what Quartz has been able to do for Twisted Minds. He's been able to take over in this meta on hit scan. There's no reason Merit couldn't go toe-for-toe with someone like Quartz and really have a similar impact for this team.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's almost ironic because if F16 were able to take Checkmate as their import slot, you'd actually feel really good about the way that this roster was built. Obviously, we have no idea how these negotiations go. We can look at the MVP by Gidia. I think that Landon's got a chance. Checkmate's got a good chance. I'm hoping it's Landon. I finally get what I want. I think that he's probably deserved an MVP at least once or twice this tournament, as much as maybe my bias shows off day after day. Yeah, I think a very, very solid performance from him today. Maybe a little bit shaky on map 1, but I think overall a pretty good bounce back from yesterday.
I think so, yeah. There was a couple of times, we talked about Fakator a lot yesterday and how he struggled into F16's dive, and there were times where someone did just get one, he just managed to find the punch into one shot, stop him getting his cooldowns off, but more often than not, Landon came out on top. And I think it's really fair to say that in that BAP v Doom sort of mini game you get a lot, the Doom is favoured in that matchup. You have to be very good at Baptiste to come out on top more often, especially if the Doom you're playing against is someone. And I think Landon demonstrated that today, and he really started to take over a little bit at times as we got later in the series. And once we get to the Sigma Mirror on Circuit Royale, it was a big BAP gap at the end.
Yeah, I think if you ask someone in an interview right now, you'd say, "Oh, what was the reason you lost?" You'd say, "Oh, that BAP was very, very difficult to kill." So yeah, thoroughly deserved by Landon. Okay, let's talk about the map picks then. So we were discussing this, and when we saw that F16 picked Circuit Royale, I was loading up Twitter. I was ready to send some abuse. What did you think of the logic? Because obviously the dive hadn't been working. That's fair, but if dive is going to work anywhere, it's going to work on Dorado. Whereas what you were doing is putting all of your eggs into the Sigma Mirror basket, which was proved last week that didn't feel like it was ever.
It's really weird because initially when I saw Circuit Royale come up, I thought, what in the world are F16 thinking? You finally, like, the Flashpoint's rough, right? Because you can't really pick a dive-friendly map. Push, they'll probably be upset with how it went, but Push was really the story of the Tracer adaptation being too much to deal with. But all of a sudden, if we can go to Dorado and stick our Anna Brig on a high ground, it's way harder for Checkmate to 1v2 or 1v3 us. It's way harder for TVNT to get involved and make our lives hell. The nades get easier, our backline gets freer. Couldn't ask for a better dive map. Let's take it somewhere like that. I don't know if they got baited maybe by winning Samoa Volcano at the start and winning the Sig Mirror, and that they thought, oh, actually, this is better. We've lost a bit of confidence here. Let's go back to that. It works back on map 1.
Yeah, to me, it felt like I would probably prefer to have one more go at dive on one of those super dive friendly maps. Then you're gonna if they pick Lijiang next, okay, maybe we just need to Sigma because we've proved that we can't dive on good Sigma maps. But to me, it felt like probably Dorado or Route 66 looked really good, especially because GK hadn't shown any real interest in playing the Symmetra, which I think surely is almost mandatory to be able to cap Dorado if you're playing with Lucio Bap. To be fair, it started out okay. It looked like the decision to take the Sig Mirror was successful. But my feeling was that the one thing that GK have done a little bit is they've put Checkmate on kind of funny heroes for certain maps or certain fights, and it seems to have almost always backfired. Once they eventually figured out how to swap back to the Mei Sojourn, juggling all of the ults, from then on it was pretty one-sided for the rest of the map.
It was weird because I had so many question marks about it when F16 picked it, but then they just nail the snowball. And if you nail the snowball on Circuit Royale, you can actually get to third and you have a great chance to win the map. But as soon as GK got back onto Mei Sojourn, got Checkmate back on the right roll, they didn't lose another fight and they held him super close. And then we go over to the other side, and again, GK looking complete control. And I think there was lots of good moments, like that hold on second where GK come with the Flux Mail, and Merit TPs everyone out of the Flux Mail, and it nearly looks like they've clutched the big fight, but they just don't quite do it. But I think GK were probably really happy to see Circuit Royale ultimately, and I would have preferred, let's give them one more dive test on a tricky dive map.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the big ult fights, especially in the Sigma Mirror, definitely went the way of GK. I think that we were critical of TVNT's Sigma ults yesterday. I think if we look at the Kaspersky clutch of the day, we might actually see TVNT hitting a flux that hit more than 0 people. And I think that this for him was a big improvement from what we saw yesterday, especially with the ults. You see here, this is a perfect ult. Get the Genji just after he's played in, get 4 of them, and then yeah, that's a one fight for just the one ult there.
He had a couple of plays like this where Landon would window and TVNT would turn and just hit those orbs through the window and just one-shot Merit or something like this. And it's so useful when the Sigma can use his shield to mark the backline, turn around, put damage, or especially if he can find a kill on one of the dive DPS. We saw Burno do it a lot, and we've seen TVNT have success here. I think especially really important for TVNT when we think about the tournament as a whole. He's got to go back up against Twisted Minds. He had a bad performance yesterday, but hopefully today has boosted his confidence right back up and he can really show what he's capable of tomorrow.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that he absolutely needed a performance like this today to be able to get that confidence back. He obviously felt how a lot of Sigmas have felt playing against Yubi and KSA in terms of that Mei Sigma combo is so difficult to play against. If GK are to have any chance tomorrow, he is going to have to step up and they're going to have to reduce that gap as much as they can.
Exactly. We saw yesterday there was a hole potentially in Twisted Minds, especially in these bigger macro fights when there's lots of ults in play. But to get to that point, you have to stay in it long enough to get to those big ult fights. You can't be losing neutrals. And if there is one worry right now for GK, I look back to that Samoa and you go, did they lose the Sig matchup because F16 had a greater macro understanding or greater coordination in these mid-fight situations? I was like, well, not really. GK just had someone die before the fight 3 times in a row. And these are the sort of mistakes you make against Twisted Minds. they'll eat you up for that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if we then do look towards the final tomorrow, is there anything that we can really say that for GK and how they need to take it? I think we probably are both in agreement that any sort of strategy change would be a mistake. It does feel like this is the comp that has everybody on their best hero, that seems to be having them doing their best work. What do we need to see differently from GK, or is it genuinely as simple as we just have to have better individual performances?
Yeah, it seems maybe like poor analysis or poor coaching to just say, just play better, guys. But I think actually, just play better, guys. If we can suddenly not just get Sig Gap so hard, we can connect a couple of our fluxes. We can not have Landon die every time he uses window. If you actually strip out all these mistakes from that match, it's a neck and neck series, you know? Like, if you take all of that away, it's really close, actually, between GK and Twisted Minds. But easier said than done, right?
Maybe what we need to do is we need to go to the hotel. We need to figure out which number Quartz is staying at. And if we can figure out that specific hotel, we can set up some sort of Vuvu sailors outside, or we can do some sort of illegal maneuvers to throw him off his game. Because as much as we need to see better improvements from individuals on GK, we also really need to see worse performances from players like Quartz to really stand too much of a chance. And I think that I can't see any swaps. I really can't see any swaps coming into play. I think that we have to nail these big ult fights. And we just have to hope that like maybe Rojo can step up to the plate a little bit more, can really match Quartz on some of these off angles. If we can survive some of these neutrals just a tiny bit better, then maybe there's a little bit of hope. The neutrals in terms of the Sigma, the May wall, we have to fix that. I think that's the step one. And I think that day one, we've seen him coaching in the booth today. They've obviously made one or two swaps to Lucio player after map on, so maybe that'll make it feel better. But that's it. We have to stop Quartz and we have to stop TVNT dying on that first wall cooldown.
I think it's absolutely crucial, like you say. So much of it is going to come down to that. And if they can get it, we've seen Saudi struggle in mid-fights before, and that could potentially be a weakness. But that will all be coming to you tomorrow, same time, same place. It's a big one. Grand finals coming up, best of 7. We'll see you there tomorrow. But let's throw it back to our stage host to close out the day.
مشاهدينا الكرام في كل مكان، ورجعنا لكم بعد نهاية المباراة الوحيدة والاستثنائية في هذا اليوم اللي كانت بين فريق جي كي ضد فريق F16 في اللور فاينل. وذكرنا في بداية هذا اليوم قلنا اللي بيفوز بيروح للجراند فاينل ضد فريق تويستد مايند، وفعلا هذا اللي حصل مع فريق جي كي. قدروا انهم يفوزون بنتيجة 4-1. بكرة بتكون معانا النهائي الكبير بين الكبار، معانا تويستد مايند وفريق جي كي. وش تتوقع يا نورمان؟
Lamana Wajih, I'm excited to see what's gonna happen tomorrow. We got one game only. We got the grand finals, Twisted Minds against GK Esports. And as I mentioned earlier, it is the revenge, Wajih. We said that like tons of times. GK are ready, Twisted Minds are ready. They want to face each other again. But today was filled with excitement, but the excitement does not end here. We still got tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow is the grand finals. We just witnessed the lower finals. GK Esports against F16 and ended 4-1. It wasn't an amazing match we saw.
مثل ما قلت، مين اللي بيكون الفائز؟ هل بيستمر فريق تويستد مايند بالفوز والانتصار لين ياخذ اللقب، او انه بيكون فيه الرد من جي كي وينتقم ضد فريق تويستد مايند؟ فكل هالاشياء هذه ما ندري عنها، بتكون معانا بكره من الساعه 6 الى نهايه البطوله. فشكر خاص لكل من تواجد معانا في الستيج، وشكر خاص لخلف الشاشات، وشكرا للاستديو العربي والانجليزي. كنت معاكم اخوكم وجيه، ونشوفكم ان شاء الله على خير. الموضوع عندك يا نورمان.
Oh my, I'm excited for tomorrow, as you are, Wajih. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, also being here with us today. Also, big shout out to our lovely talents up there, casters, analysts. Today was an amazing day, but we got tomorrow. The big finals are waiting. I was Normal, or Yusuf, aka Yusuf, on the stage here alongside the beautiful Wajih. Until then, stay tuned, keep your head up.